Han Li's Wuxia Adventures. Chapter 611, A Disaster for the Yu Clan. It seems like I have to go out, thought Lin Feng when he saw that the door was open. He couldn't see what was happening outside, but he was hoping that the temple wasn't being encircled by his enemies. Lin Feng grabbed hold of the sword he had obtained and left the temple. He checked to the left and right. He was being extremely careful. There was nobody outside, which relieved Lin Feng. He continued to glance around. But after a while, Lin Feng saw some starlight, 2 of them and then 3. As expected. Lin Feng was surprised. After one day, nobody wasted any time. People continued to hunt others to steal starlight seeds. There, at that moment, Lin Feng was stupefied. There were 5 starlights. Someone had 5 starlight seeds, which meant that he had killed 4 people already. Besides, Lin Feng just realized that there was something strange. Everybody was trying to avoid him. All the starlights were moving away from him. People who had that many starlight seeds were very strong. Huh? Lin Feng was surprised. At that moment, there was a star approaching him. There were 2 people. One of them had 1 starlight seed and the other had 2. Do they want to kill me? Thought Lin Feng. He then started to calmly walk away. As expected, when Lin Feng changed direction, the other 2 moved in the same direction as him. They were rushing in his direction and gaining speed. Lin Feng's pace didn't change. He was moving neither slowly nor quickly at that moment, but those 2 people continued to move closer. Finally, he arrived somewhere and stopped. He then turned around and saw the people arriving. Yu Jian and Yu Qin. Yu Jian already had 2 starlight seeds. He had killed someone and stolen another starlight seed. After one day in there, you finally came out, said Yu Jian with a cold smile on his face. He had been waiting for Lin Feng to leave. After seeing only 1 starlight leaving the temple, Yu Jian understood that it must be Lin Feng. On the way, Yu Qin managed to join him. You want to kill me that badly? Said Lin Feng indifferently while looking at Yu Jian. You should have died much sooner. You're really lucky to have made it so far. But, I have an extra seed now. With its advantage, you are already a dead man, said Yu Jian while smiling coldly. A sword then appeared in his hand. Moron. You've only been hiding in the temple for 1 day. That wasn't very smart, said Yu Jian mockingly, and then added, I learnt the same skill as you with my seed and then an agility technique with the other one. Yu Qin learned a hand skill with his seed. You're nothing. How could you hope to compete with us? Lin Feng reached back and unsheathed the sword from his back, which emitted a cold gleam. Humph. We learnt the same sword skill and I now have an agility technique. Get ready to die, shouted Yu Jian furiously. He then jumped forwards, attacking Lin Feng abruptly. His sword was dazzling. Lin Feng took a step. His sword twinkled, the same sword as Yu Jian. They both looked exactly the same. I'm going to get another seed, said Yu Jian happily. He then moved with incredible speed and in a flash his sword arrived in front of Lin Feng. But at that moment Lin Feng's sword, which was in the distance, moved like an illusion, slow and quick at the same time. Pssssh, the sound spread through the air and a sword penetrated through flesh. Lin Feng and Yu Jian were facing each other. Yu Jian's sword was in front of Lin Feng's chest and even pierced his clothes, but it was unable to move farther. However, Lin Feng's sword had already pierced Yu Jian's throat. That sword seemed to be slow, but in a flash, it had pierced into his throat. He had learnt an agility technique which had helped him improve his speed, but his sword skill wasn't at the same level as Lin Feng, who had truly understood the skill. Same sword skill indeed, but our way of practicing is different, said Lin Feng indifferently. He then pushed Yu Jian's sword aside using his finger. Yu Jian's eyes were wide open. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. He refused to close his eyes. Lin Feng's sword had been incredible, to the extent that Yu Jian was still seeing an illusion. Lin Feng was a moron. But, why was he able to comprehend the skill much better than Yu Jian? And in the outside world, wasn't it the same? Because you're about to die, let me tell you something, I am Lin Feng from Shuiyu. Said Lin Feng coldly, which astonished Yu Jian. He started shaking even more. Lin Feng, it was the real Lin Feng. Then Lin Feng's sword moved more and he started shaking intensely. The two seeds between Yu Jian's eyebrows immediately appeared between Lin Feng's eyebrows. It was incredibly intriguing. Lin Feng had killed him and gained 2 starlight seeds. Yu Jian had already used his 2 seeds to learn skills, but after dying, they were usable again. Lin Feng could use them again to learn another skill. When Yu Qin saw Yu Jian collapse, he was shocked as he stared at Lin Feng. It was the real Lin Feng. He had just thought that it was a nobody with a strong body, but in fact it was Lin Feng, the real one. It was the Lin Feng he had always wanted to eliminate. Lin Feng had disappeared, but he hadn't died. He instead transformed and appeared with a new face. He hadn't even bothered to change his name, yet nobody had guessed that he was the same person. You asked people from Tianfeng to come and kill me, you nearly caused my death. Initially, I didn't intend to kill you, but you've always continued to push me. How foolish. Said Lin Feng while slowly walking towards Yu Qin. Yu Qin kept moving backwards, he was terrified. Lin Feng originally was a nobody in Shuiyu and then rose and became a famous figure. Everybody had been astonished by Lin Feng's cultivation speed. He used to be trash, but step by step, he had become so strong that it scared everyone, making them seem like trash for being so afraid. So just like Yu Qin, many people wanted to eradicate him. However, Lin Feng was still alive and he was in front of Yu Qin. Run! Thought Yu Qin at that moment. He was terrified by Lin Feng and, of course, didn't dare fight against him. He turned around and started running like mad. Surprisingly, he didn't even consider trying to avenge Yu Jian's death. You know, running is useless now. Said Lin Feng. He made a step forwards, raised his sword which seemed to be extremely distant, but in a flash, it abruptly appeared in front of Yu Qin. It was releasing a suffocating pressure. Yu Qin wasn't even able to move for much longer until he crashed into the ground and the starlight seed between his eyebrows appeared on Lin Feng. Lin Feng already had 4 starlight seeds and could learn 3 new skills. He didn't go back to the temple though, he needed to get more seeds to learn the better skills. He wanted to learn the sword skill which required 7 seeds. Outside of the evil area, Yu Lu Shui was furious and his face had become extremely red. The 2 geniuses of the Yu clan had died. They were both killed by the same person. Yu Lu Shui had hoped that those 2 geniuses would make it, at least, to the second round, but in the end they died. He would be going back to Shuiyu with nothing. When Yu Qin Shan, on Yu Lu Shui's side, saw that Yu Qin and Yu Jian had died, he remained calm. There were many benefits to gain in the evil area, but not everybody could seize those opportunities. Yu Jian and Lin Feng had had the same sword skill and the same cultivation level, but there had still been a huge difference in power. The great competition of Shuiyu belonged to real warriors, to the real geniuses. Even though there was an initial 144 geniuses, lots of them would die. Suddenly, Yu Lu Shui turned his head and looked at Xiaoya on another mountain. Sharp lights were twinkling in his eyes. Lin Feng had come together with that girl. Lin Feng had killed his sons, so the Yu clan would make him pay the price for it. Chapter 612, Encountering UMO. Yu Lu Shui's silhouette flickered and he threw himself towards Xiaoya while releasing his qi. That powerful qi terrified Han Man and Xiaoya, who turned around and immediately saw Yu Lu Shui attacking them. How shameless! Shouted Han Man furiously. He grabbed Xiaoya's hand and moved backwards, but Yu Lu Shui acted as if he hadn't heard him and kept moving forwards. His fist was still aiming at them. Stop! shouted a furious voice which crashed through the air and oppressed the entire mountain chain and especially Yu Lu Shui. Yu Lu Shui felt like a meteor had crashed into his body and he groaned in pain. He immediately fell to the ground and struggled to remain conscious. He pulled a long face and raised his head. He saw Xue Wuchang in the air who was fixedly staring at him with killing intent. Yu Lu Shui was terrified. The great competition of Xueyu is a competition in which those geniuses fight and risk their lives. You are an insignificant outsider. If we allowed insignificant people to shamelessly attack people out here, how could the geniuses concentrate their efforts on the competition? If you want to avenge your people, you can do it after the competition. But if you even glance at them again during the competition, I will kill you on the spot. A terrifying energy had invaded the mountains, everybody could clearly sense it, which made them shiver. Nobody dared to make a single move. What a buffoon, you really made a spectacle of yourself, said Yu Qing Shan while looking at Yu Lu Shui. Yu Lu Shui groaned and coughed even more blood. His face looked hideous. The geniuses of his clan had been killed and he couldn't even avenge them. Han man, bro, are you alright? Said Pajun at that moment. Even though Yu Lu Shui hadn't managed to attack him properly, his chi had still reached Han Man and injured him. I'm okay, said Han Man while wiping some blood from his mouth. He was fixedly staring at Yu Lu Shui under his bronze mask and then looked at the evil area again. After Lin Feng killed Yu Jian and Yu Qin, he had 4 starlight seeds. He looked around and found out that there were more people coming towards him. Everyone had seen that there were 3 people in the area, but shortly after there was only 1 person left with 4 starlights. He had obviously killed the other 2 people. The killer hadn't taken the time to go to a temple and learn an amazing skill, so the best time to attack him was now. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled and he immediately started to move towards the temple. However, 4 people started rushing to block his path. 2 of them had 1 starlight seed and the others had 2 each. He couldn't deal with them all by himself. When they saw Lin Feng continue moving towards them, they threw themselves towards him. If they could obtain his seeds, they would reap a huge benefit. In that evil area, one could see other people's position with a glance, so he couldn't afford to be careless. A temple. At that moment, Lin Feng had created some distance between them and was the north area close to a temple. Lin Feng's eyes were distant as he contemplated his options. If he went in, he would be able to use his 4 seeds to obtain a powerful skill, but after that he would have no seeds left and would have to kill even more people to obtain better skills. Lin Feng was irresolute at that moment. More people would arrive as time progressed. What he initially wanted was to kill enough people to obtain the better skills right away. Now, he had to decide on a different plan. But while Lin Feng was considering the situation, he narrowed his eyes and suddenly, 5 starlights appeared. There was already someone at the temple. What a coincidence, that person was coming out. That person immediately jumped out and appeared at the top of the temple. When he saw Lin Feng, he looked excited. Lin Feng had 5 starlight seeds. If he stole them, he would be able to use another 5 seeds. It seemed like this time the heavens were on his side. Lin Feng stopped walking and looked at that silhouette. It was one of the 8 most outstanding geniuses, Umo from the Firmament Empire. During that short time, the people from behind were starting to catch up when they saw Umo leaving the temple and his 5 starlights shining brightly. They all stopped and didn't dare approach. Everybody revered and worshipped the 8 most outstanding disciples of the competition. Besides, at that moment, Umo had 5 starlight seeds after exiting the temple, which meant that he had probably obtained a monstrous ability. I must leave. Lin Feng didn't want to fight against Umo either. He was using only 1 seed and Umo was using 5 seeds. Besides, Umo was one of the 8 geniuses of the competition. He probably mastered skills at an incredible speed. Lin Feng wasn't strong enough to fight against him with only a single skill. Lin Feng then moved in the other direction, but Umo just smiled coldly. "Where are you going?" said Umo at that moment while turning into a hurricane and moving at full speed. Umo had killed one person and rushed to a temple. He acquired a monstrous agility technique, then he used that agility technique to kill two other people. One of them had a single seed and the other had two seeds. Then Umo had used those three seeds to obtain a monstrously strong skill, a fist skill. "Come back!" shouted Umo furiously. Chapter 613, Ambition. Lin Feng's clothes had been shredded. Umo gathered pure qi into his fist and struck towards Lin Feng's body. Where Lin Feng was, a terrifying whirlpool appeared which seemed like it was going to swallow him. Boom! Lin Feng slammed his foot to the ground. He wanted to retreat but he only saw Umo give an evil laugh. He then threw himself at Lin Feng with lightning-quick speed. "Sword!" shouted Lin Feng. A light twinkled. Lin Feng abruptly turned around and raised his sword to the west. That terrifying sword was neither too slow nor too fast, it just continued to move forwards. Die! Lin Feng looked murderous. It seemed like Lin Feng wasn't near Umo, however, Lin Feng's sword seemed like it could defy the physical laws as it immediately appeared in front of Umo. It was aimed at his throat. Lin Feng's sword was extremely fast. Umo quickly dodged and raised his hand to block as terrifying pure qi started undulating around him. A subtle sound emerged as Lin Feng's sword penetrated into his hand which made Umo's proud face suddenly drop. Lin Feng's sword was incredible, it had ignored the laws of physics. If Umo hadn't reacted quickly, that sword wouldn't have penetrated his hand but his throat instead. "Die, die, die," Umo shouted "die" once, but it echoed through the sky. He was furious and his long hair started violently fluttering in the air. He was releasing a terrifying energy. He unleashed a punch and a vortex appeared next to Lin Feng again. It wanted to swallow him. Lin Feng groaned and was once again projected backwards. While Lin Feng moved backwards, blood splashed from Umo's hand again as he heavily stepped on the ground and suddenly disappeared from sight. Agility technique, thought Lin Feng stupefied. Umo had learnt an incredible agility technique which enabled him to move extremely quickly. Lin Feng raised his sword and instead of moving backwards, he rushed forwards. However, he only saw Umo appear briefly in front of him and vanish once again. Lin Feng's sword was only fast enough to pass through an after image, while Umo threw himself at Lin Feng's back while shouting furiously. A terrifying fist was aiming at the back of Lin Feng's head. If Lin Feng didn't move quickly, his skull would be crushed. Boom! Gotcha! Umo's hand didn't reach Lin Feng's head like expected, instead, it was greeted by a punch from Lin Feng's other arm. However, the power of the punch traveled through the fist and snapped Lin Feng's arm in half. Gotcha! Pure qi continued up his arm, doing more damage to the bones as it passed. Lin Feng gnashed his teeth and glared Umo with killing intent. "You injured me." Umo was glaring at Lin Feng and continued moving forwards to put more pressure on Lin Feng's fist. "Die!" shouted Umo. Umo shook his fist and in a flash, Lin Feng was surrounded by a vortex again. Lin Feng's facial expression was ruthless and he was still firmly holding his sword with his other hand. In his head, there was only his sword, nothing else. Boom! Boom! Another series of sounds emerged in the air. Umo continued moving forwards and putting pressure on Lin Feng. He looked like he had gone crazy. Lin Feng was firmly holding his sword but at that moment, he was shocked. As if someone couldn't wait for him to die quick enough, he suddenly felt a powerful qi surge from behind him. Lin Feng quickly jumped and moved aside. He then felt a wind breeze past his body and immediately rumbling sound filled his ears as wind was blasted in every direction. Tang Yu. When Lin Feng saw that Tang Yu was attacking Umo, he was astonished. She was now fighting against Umo. Umo was also stupefied. Tang Yu had 4 starlight seeds already. She wasn't going to be easy to defeat either. Umo suddenly pulled a long face, he looked particularly glum. In the evil area, their cultivation levels were all the same, what a pity. The most important thing was to obtain as many starlight seeds as possible to get the treasures, that was the only thing which could make the difference inside the evil area. Let's go, said Tang Yu to Lin Feng. She then slowly moved backwards. Lin Feng coldly looked at Umo and left with Tang Yu. Umo looked at them leave. Fighting against them at the same time wouldn't be that easy, he had no choice. Fuck off. Stop looking at me, said Umo as he rushed towards someone who had moved too close to the fight. Everybody started shaking, it didn't look good for that person. Tang Yu and Lin Feng had left and that person was now closest to Umo. That person then immediately started running but Umo moved like a hurricane and in a flash arrived next to him. Then Umo's hand suddenly clamped onto the person's neck, a subtle sound emerged in the air and in the blink of an eye new starlight seed appeared between Umo's eyebrows. Most of the others who had been watching had already left. They had been careful, prudent and smart, they had understood that they couldn't waste time watching, they had to use their time to hunt others to become stronger. Those who weren't seizing the early advantages in the beginning, were dying one after the other. Those who were still alive were becoming stronger and stronger. Killing the strongest ones had become almost invincible, so the weakest had no chance of winning, they had to adopt a defensive strategy and quickly retreat from all danger. Lin Feng and Tang Yu were on a dune at that moment. They could see all around them. The wind was blowing on Tang Yu's hair making it float on the wind. Her white skin looked particularly cold at that moment. Thank you, said Lin Feng. Tang Yu had saved his life, he wouldn't have been able to escape otherwise. Jun Mo, she said that people from Dragon Mountain have to stick together. I hope that more of us will be able to move on to the next round. Besides, you are talented, it would be a pity if you died in the first round. Get ready to use the seeds you have right now, said Tang Yu while turning her head to him. She looked elegant and beautiful. Lin Feng had given her a very good first impression. He was extremely brave and courageous as well as a strong and talented cultivator from Xueyu. She appreciated him and didn't want him to die in the first round. At that moment, he had 4 seeds which he hadn't used, if he had, he would have been able to fight back against Umo. Besides, Lin Feng had also injured Umo with his sword while being at a disadvantage. Don't worry. I am going to wait, said Lin Feng while shaking his head. He really wanted better treasures, he wanted to wait. We were 144 cultivators when we came in, now 40 people are dead already. In a short while, the first round will be over. Maybe if you get to a temple, you will become much stronger but many people have died already. The first round will be over soon, it is just a matter of time. It also means that we won't have a chance to kill many more people. After all, you're not the only one with multiple starlight seeds, therefore, we need to get stronger as soon as possible to gather more seeds. That is what Xue Wuchang meant when he talked about the benefits, said Tang Yu. Lin Feng was very ambitious but the problem was that the 8 most outstanding geniuses were very dangerous. Of course, people would all adopt different strategies, some of them thought that using seeds immediately was the best way, then they could immediately kill to gather more seeds. That was one strategy. It's very possible that others want your seeds and are paying attention to you, said Tang Yu after remaining silent for a short while. Lin Feng already had 5 seeds and wasn't going to the temple, many people would target him. Therefore, I cannot afford to waste time, said Lin Feng. He was fixedly staring at Tang Yu and added, will you help me? Help you? Whispered Tang Yu, she was a bit surprised. Yes, help me. I know that I may sound selfish, but I don't want to miss out these opportunities, I know you don't either. Considering the transparent nature of this place and your strength, people will try to avoid you at all costs and there's not much you can do alone. Therefore, if we work together, we can kill people and acquire seeds which wouldn't be possible for either of us by ourselves. We should use this opportunity to seize an advantage," said Lin Feng firmly. This was a rare opportunity. Lin Feng, just like Tang Yuyu, didn't want to let it slip. Lin Feng needed strength, so he didn't hesitate when asking Tang Yuyu for help. Chapter 6:14, Killing Together. Tang Yuyu remained silently staring at Lin Feng. He was asking her to help him. He was asking her to give up a part of her freedom. She would certainly miss out on some seeds if they worked together. "Why would I help you when I could instead take your seeds from you?" asked Tang Yuyu surprised. Her cultivation level was higher than Lin Feng's. If she could obtain some great skills, wouldn't she be stronger than him? "We are two different people, one of us must compromise. If it's not you then it's me, but in any case one of us must compromise, otherwise we won't progress. At this time I need strength more than you do. It is only because of this that you think that I am selfish, which might be true to some extent. But if you help me I can give you 2 pure healing pills. I think that you would be happy to have them," said Lin Feng looking determined. His cultivation level was indeed very low. If he missed the opportunities of the evil area he would be too weak to combat the other geniuses. In the evil area, some already had 6 or 7 starlight seeds. They were probably the 8 most outstanding geniuses. Besides, the number of people who had only 3 or 4 seeds was reducing quickly. Lin Feng was convinced that those people were going to be killed by the others. Lin Feng had to become stronger, otherwise everybody would rush to kill him. Pure healing pills. Tang Yuyu was surprised. Lin Feng also had such treasures. Pure healing pills enabled cultivators to entirely refill their pure qi reserves. That kind of pill was extremely useful, especially during the competition. If there was a cultivation difference between 2 cultivators, a pure healing pill could make the difference. After remaining silent for a short while, Tang Yuyu said, "All right, what do you want me to do exactly?" When Lin Feng heard Tang Yuyu, he smiled resplendently. Tang Yuyu was accepting his request. Lin Feng took out 2 pills and gave them to Tang Yuyu. She looked pleasantly surprised. "Are you not afraid that I'll betray you now that you gave me these? You just saved my life. Those 2 pills are nothing compared to what you have done for me. Just see it as a sign of my gratitude. Even if you take them and leave me I will not blame you," said Lin Feng with a warm smile on his face. Tang Yuyu's beautiful eyes were twinkling as she immediately put the pills away. Lin Feng was funny and interesting. "There are 2 people at the top of some dunes, one of them has 3 seeds and the other only has 1. We should kill the one with 3 seeds first," said Lin Feng. Tang Yuyu nodded and they started walking through some dunes. In the evil area, even though everyone only had the strength of the first Xian Qi layer, they could still control pure Qi, use it to fly through the sky. However, not many people dared to because they didn't want to waste pure Qi, it was too dangerous. Lin Feng started running quickly at full speed. Somebody could sense that Lin Feng was coming towards him and he raised his head. He obviously didn't want to fight because he had started running away. Lin Feng suddenly jumped, closed in the space between that person. They all had the strength of the first Xian Qi layer, so chasing other cultivators wasn't easy at all. Therefore, it was easier to escape. And in case it was impossible, you could always hide in temples and waste some time. Lin Feng looked extremely resolute. He jumped forwards. His pure Qi emitted whistling sounds as he rose up in the air like an arrow. He was flying in the air above a dune, which seemed to increase his speed. Chasing people while flying was much easier. He then noticed a gray silhouette not far from him. Someone from Tiangfeng. When Lin Feng saw that person, he smiled devilishly. That person was the one of the 7 envoys. That person rose his head and saw Lin Feng. He was surprised. Not only had he found Lin Feng, but Lin Feng had 5 starlight seeds already. Didn't you want to kill me in the first place? Why are you escaping now? Said Lin Feng before landing on the ground. He was looking at him in a cruel way. He despised him. That person shook his fist and it turned golden. It was particularly dazzling and his chi was quite strong. Then he threw himself at Lin Feng, leading with his fist. That fist contained some Buddha chi. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to be compatible with that person's evil chi. It was very strange. A cold light twinkled, Lin Feng unsheathed his sword and immediately attacked that person's fist. His golden Buddha fist seemed extremely solid and indestructible. Clang! A metallic sound spread in the air. Lin Feng jumped backwards and smiled. You are so weak. That person had just exchanged his 3 seeds for a skill, a golden Shakyamuni fist skill. Even though he hadn't practiced it for a long time, he was already able to make his fist turn into a real golden Shakyamuni fist, which meant that almost nothing could destroy him. Therefore, he had stopped chasing people. His sole purpose was to protect himself, that's why he was hiding in the middle of some dunes. He had first killed 2 people, then he had acquired this skill and thought it was enough. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng was paying attention to him, and even less that he would waste his pure chi to chase him and run in the air. You really are a coward. I used only 1 seed and you tried to run away from me. People from Tianfeng are all weaklings and cowards, you chicken. You have no guts at all. Just like the envoys I killed in Shuiyu, you are also a mere piece of trash, said Lin Feng indifferently. That person was astonished. Lin Feng had killed some of the envoys in the past. You are Lin Feng. Indeed I am. On that night, you sent so many people to kill me, but I killed all of them and I am still alive, said Lin Feng mockingly. The other looked furious. Surprisingly, this Lin Feng was the real one. They had all been fooled by his appearance. You didn't die then, but now I will kill you, said the envoy while jumping forwards. His 2 hands turned golden, they were dazzling while looking extremely solid. Lin Feng's sword looked like a poisonous dragon incessantly attacking that person's fist, but it was useless. His sword couldn't cut through those fists. No wonder you were just hiding here, that skill is only enough to protect yourself, said Lin Feng. The envoy had just joined his hands and could protect himself. When he was blocking Lin Feng's sword he had managed to grab it and hold on to it firmly. Lin Feng smiled coldly and tried to move his sword back. Before that man realized, Lin Feng had managed to pull his sword back and put it in front of the envoy's throat. Golden Shakyamuni body, shouted that person whose facial expression drastically changed. His entire body was dazzling. He transformed into a golden statue. That skill looked particularly inappropriate and inharmonious on such a person. Who? However, at that moment, the envoy was caught off guard. He turned his head and saw a beautiful silhouette run towards him. Immediately after, her fists broke through the golden statue. Sirrr. His entire body was breaking. Lin Feng's sword then pierced through his throat. He was shaking violently, he looked astonished as he collapsed. Die. Lin Feng shook his sword in that person's throat and in a flash, 3 starlight seeds appeared between Lin Feng's eyebrows. Now Lin Feng had 8 starlight seeds and could use 7 of them. Thank you, said Lin Feng while smiling at Tang Yu, but she didn't look so reassured. She pointed at a place down the hill and said, don't talk too fast. Lin Feng turned his head and immediately looked down the dune. There were many stars twinkling down there. Those people had been staring at them. At that moment, Lin Feng's 8 stars obviously attracted everybody. Let's go, said Lin Feng when he saw that many people were running towards them. Tang Yu started running with him at full speed. Chapter 6:15. The Evil Temple. There were many people running up the dune together, but strangely they weren't fighting each other. There were 2 people at the top of the dune. One of them had 12 starlight seeds. Stealing that person's seeds would have been incredibly great. There was another person with 8 starlight seeds, and it seemed that they hadn't used 7 of them yet, which meant he hadn't obtained any great skills yet. Many people in the area noticed that and rushed over to the dune. It seemed like the first round could finish any time on that dune. Lin Feng and Tang Yu were running frantically. Finally they arrived at the very top of the dune. It was a huge and vast flat area. Surprisingly, at the top there was a temple out of which a mysterious and mystical chi was emerging. Lin Feng looked at the temple. It seemed like there was a Haruka there. It looked kind and evil at the same time. It was difficult to distinguish if it was evil or good. Maybe that the envoy obtained his golden Shakyamuni skill from that temple. Lin Feng and Tang Yu glanced at each other and then gazed into the distance. More and more people were running up the dune. They were getting closer and closer to the top. "Do you want to go to that temple?" asked Tang Yu to Lin Feng. Lin Feng already had 8 seeds and had used only one of them. He could probably obtain some monstrous skill at that moment and become much stronger. Lin Feng looked irresolute. It had been so difficult to obtain those 7 seeds. What he wanted the most was the sword skill from the sword temple, but people were chasing them at that moment. If he wanted to obtain the sword skill, he definitely had to fly through the sky and use too much pure chi. Others would then join in chasing him then. It would be horrible if Lin Feng ended up dying. If he entered the temple in front of him he might obtain a great skill, but he might not have the opportunity to go to the sword temple again. Lin Feng was fixedly staring at that temple with the statue looking both evil and good at the same time. It seemed like the nature of the statue kept changing every second. Lin Feng, however, had a familiar impression. Wasn't his Haruka strength skill also good and evil? Maybe that it was a sign that he had to get in. "Can you come in with me?" asked Lin Feng. Tang Yu looked pensive for a few seconds and replied, "The doors might not shut because I don't have any more seeds to bargain with. But we might as well try." Lin Feng nodded. They needed the door of the temple to remain closed, otherwise they wouldn't be protected. "Let's go in," said Lin Feng. They then immediately entered the temple without another hesitation. Tang Yu entered with him, and as hoped, the door of the temple closed itself. In a flash, some stars disappeared at the top of the mountain, surprising the people that were running up the dunes. Was there a temple at the top of the dune? A lot of them began leaving. Lin Feng had 8 seeds and would probably obtain a monstrously powerful skill. After coming out, they wouldn't be the ones to kill him. Instead, he would kill them. Of course, some people stayed and waited. They consisted of a group of 5 people. Those people only had 1 seed between their eyebrows. They had managed to survive only because they had stayed together the whole time. That was a smart strategy. They kept helping each other. If they had decided to kill each other initially they might not have survived the confrontation after. They decided to wait for those 2. One of them had 8 starlight seeds and another had 4. If their group had managed to kill them and obtain their seeds they wouldn't be scared of anyone else anymore. Even though the seeds would only belong to one of them, they still wanted to try. Maybe they would be the one to succeed. At that moment, Lin Feng and Tang Yu were in the temple. It was as big as the sword temple. There were no swords in suspension however, only the statue. That gigantic statue wasn't facing them. They could see it from the side only because it had 2 faces facing leftwards and rightwards. One evil and one good side. Looking in 2 different directions. "It's a Haruka statue," whispered Tang Yu. She sounded very surprised. How come there was such an ancient statue in there? Evil was evil, good was good. How had they managed to merge together in antiquity? Lin Feng was astonished. It was a real Haruka statue. Did that temple have anything to do with the Haruka skill he had? Lin Feng looked at the hands of the statue. On its left hand there were 3 good benevolent statues sitting. On its right hand there were 3 malevolent statues. On these statues there were also stars, from 1 star to 6 stars. The benevolent statue only has 1 to 3 stars while the malevolent ones have 4 to 6 stars. Is good less powerful than evil? Tang Yuyu looked surprised. That statue was extremely mysterious. Since the benevolent-looking statues had less stars than the malevolent-looking ones, did it mean that the malevolent skills were more powerful than the others? It seems like the one who built the temple didn't respect good as much as evil, whispered Tang Yuyu. But Lin Feng didn't hear her, he was staring at the one statue in the middle. It was half good, half evil and had 7 stars on it. That was probably the most powerful one. 7 seeds. Are you going to use them all? Asked Tang Yuyu. She sounded excited and curious. Was Lin Feng going to spend all of his seeds to learn the most powerful skill, or was he going to spend a few on several skills? Was he going to get a kind one, an evil one or the harmonious one? Of course, I will get this one, said Lin Feng while pointing at the one in the very middle. Lin Feng had the strength of the Haruka, of course he would get the most powerful one. He had to get the authentic one, half evil and half good. Perhaps this statue would help him in the future with his strength of the Haruka. Tang Yuyu looked at Lin Feng in a deep and meaningful way and immediately walked towards the statue. She then said, I know you wanted to go to another temple, but now you can relax. I won't bother you while you learn the skill. Alright, said Lin Feng, nodding. He shook his head and his 7 starlight seeds connected with those of the half-evil half-good statue. Bridges appeared between his seeds and those of the statue. Swiftly, Lin Feng had the impression that his head was going to explode. Some memories had entered his brain which made him shake and move back a step. Lin Feng tried to stand steadily but gave up and sat down cross-legged. As expected, a skill which required 7 stars was much more powerful than a skill which needed only 1. Those memories were extremely brutal. At that moment, a vast starry sky appeared in Lin Feng's brain. It was gigantic. A dazzling golden light started twinkling all around his body. The aura of the Buddhas were shining all around him and illuminating the entire atmosphere of the temple. On one side in the space there was a magnificent light, and on the other side there was a black evil light which couldn't be pierced by the beautiful and dazzling light. Those statues seemed like they had come from ancient times, as if good and evil had been fighting since the beginning of time. It seemed like the mouth of the good statue was moving. Texts written in Sanskrit started flowing, they were written in beautiful golden letters and they were moving towards the dark light. However, the evil statue remained fearless and remained standing there indifferently. An evil energy kept flowing and rolling in the atmosphere. The beautiful golden texts in Sanskrit kept colliding with that evil energy and then disappearing as if they had never existed. Even though Lin Feng's eyes were closed, his facial expression kept changing. The images in his brain were incredible, astonishing. His heart kept pounding violently and he couldn't calm down. Chapter 6:16, The beginning of an era. All around, evil and good were competing. The endless golden light of good was illuminating the evil darkness which was corroding the aura of the Buddha. They had been there for millions of years and the space around them was being destroyed through the struggle. Evil and good kept colliding, and yet, neither disappeared. Instead, a balance between good and evil started to appear. The black evil lights kept flowing in the air, the golden light couldn't destroy it. In Lin Feng's brain, the balance between good and evil had started to stabilize. Haruka's strength rotation skill. Lin Feng's heart was pounding. That was probably the skill he had thought about. He had already seen and learnt the skill, but this time, good and evil kept changing and evolving. In the end, good and evil merged together. Maybe that his skill came from the memories of an extremely strong cultivator from an ancient time. All skills had a strong cultivator at their origin, they were the ones creating them. Extremely strong cultivators could learn skills but also create skills for other people. They then could become Zun cultivators. Lin Feng was visualizing the skill which kept changing. He was sure that the Haruka's strength skill came from an extremely strong cultivator. However, while good and evil were fighting, Lin Feng's heart was pounding. He was realizing how monstrously strong some cultivators could be in the continent of the Nine Clouds. Those extremely strong cultivators, who had reached the clouds, had created skills combining good and evil and then transmitted them from generation to generation using this Buddha statue. If such a strong cultivator had still existed, they could annihilate anything. There was good, evil, and what else? Was there really such a thing as good and evil? Were those concepts related to a mysterious level of enlightenment? Lin Feng was asking himself many questions. People in his previous life were atheists, but he was realizing that people in the continent of the Nine Clouds knew all under heaven. Good and evil were at the origin of life. Maybe that after reaching a specific cultivation level, cultivators could be exceptionally enlightened. At that moment, Lin Feng was surrounded by a light. The strength of the Harukas was rotating around him, the good golden light and the evil black light were rotating together all around him. His muscles, bones and visceral organs were transforming and absorbing that strength. What on earth is that skill? Tang Yu was astonished watching Lin Feng. Those ancient evil and good qi were terrifying and rotating at full speed around Lin Feng. What secrets was the Haruka statue hiding? If Lin Feng doesn't die, he will become monstrously strong. He will be a monster like Duan Wu Dao or Di Ling in the future, thought Tang Yu. She hadn't known Lin Feng for a long time, but each time she met him she was surprised. Last time, he had burnt monstrous quantities of liquor, then he had attracted sunlight and now he was practicing a Haruka skill. She was witnessing the rise of a real genius. The strength of the Haruka kept rotating around him. Lin Feng was visualizing the evolution and changes of the liquids. It seemed like he was witnessing the beginning of a new transnational era. Lin Feng had absolutely no perception of time anymore. In the evil area, some buzzing sounds were spreading everywhere and piercing through people's eardrums, the entire area was vibrating. At the same time outside of the evil area, many people were watching the competition. It seemed like some marks and fissures were appearing throughout the evil area. People's faces had quickly changed, they were astonished. What was going on down there? Several people raised their heads and looked at Shui Wuchang. By this time in the evil area, 50 or 60 people had already died. For a region like Shuiyu, that was a huge number already. Those 50 or 60 people were all incredible geniuses, but they had died. They were chosen to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu and had become stepping stones for the first round. They had died and their seeds had been taken by their murderers, making them even stronger. Those who had only 3 seeds were being chased, their lives and seeds would be taken. Shui Wuchang looked calm and serene. He was just staring at the evil area. He was looking forward to seeing the evil area turn upside down just as much as he was also looking forward to seeing the second round. As the evil area was getting destroyed, he was wondering which genius was the one who was causing it. He was particularly surprised considering that all the cultivators only had the strength of the first Xian Qi layer inside. In order to destroy it like that, the cultivator necessarily had 7 seeds and had been able to learn that specific skill. Boom boom boom. Most of the participants stopped moving as the evil area kept trembling. What was happening? The group of people on the dune were particularly shocked, they could sense the vibrations even more than the others. Kacha. It seemed like something was about to explode. They raised their heads and saw a layer surrounding the atmosphere. There was a pallid light that seemed like it was going to burst out. Boom. Boom boom. Terrifying explosion sounds started emerging in the air. Suddenly, an incredibly powerful qi started rolling in the atmosphere. The crowd looked around and realized that they couldn't see stars anymore. They were wondering where they were. My cultivation is back. My cultivation is back to normal too, said some people in the evil area, realizing that their qi was back to normal. They suddenly felt so happy and so comfortable. Yeah, right, the strongest cultivators now have their cultivation back to normal too. Who can stop them now, said some of the weakest cultivators. They were suddenly feeling hopeless and terrified. In the evil area, everybody's cultivation level was oppressed, so it was better for them. They didn't have to make too many efforts to survive, but now the strongest cultivators would be able to slaughter them. Just like they had guessed, the restrictions of the evil area had disappeared. Some people rose up in the air and flew slowly into the sky. They had immediately started looking for people to chase and kill. They wanted more seeds. Unfortunately, they couldn't see starlights anymore. Otherwise, it would have been very easy to slaughter the remaining cultivators. Many of them were terrified when they saw the silhouettes rise up in the air. Some of them even started running away in order to find a place where to hide. Even some of the strong cultivators began to hide. They couldn't let other people know how many seeds they had, otherwise they would be killed. You can kill those people, I'm no longer interested, said someone waiting on that dune who was really weak. Then his silhouette flickered and he started leaving. Where are you going? Shouted an ice-cold voice. An oppressive chi surrounded that person and a fist bombarded his head. He died in a flash and his murderer took his seeds. Let's go, said someone else. The others were escaping as well, but the enemies looked at them and surprisingly didn't chase them. Immediately after, they glanced at each other and smiled coldly. They understood what it meant. Chasing them would have been worthless. They would have only obtained a few seeds. The people who were in the temple had 12 seeds, they were worth the wait. Boom! A rumbling sound spread in the air, the door of the temple slowly opened itself and a young man appeared. He looked sick but clean. He was slowly walking out of the temple. Chapter 6:17, Indestructible Golden Body. They came out. The crowd was excited and looking at the person exiting the temple. Tang Yuyu also came out. At that moment she looked calm and serene. She wasn't releasing any chi, she was only looking at Lin Feng's back. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the three people in front of him. They were all of the 7th Xian Qi layer. 5th Xian Qi layer. When the three people saw that Lin Feng had only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer, they looked even greedier. Lin Feng had only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer, nothing more. They felt very lucky. Surprisingly, Lin Feng already had 8 starlight seeds. They looked forward to stealing them. Huh! At that moment, the three of them were confused. They noticed Tang Yuyu. She wasn't doing anything even though her cultivation level was much higher than Lin Feng's. She had broken through to the very top of the 7th Xian Qi layer. Why wasn't Tang Yuyu protecting him? Why was he the one protecting her? For seeds, Lin Feng calmly glanced at them and counted the enemy's stars out loud, which surprised them. Lin Feng was counting the seeds the opponents had. Could it be that Lin Feng wanted to steal their seeds? Lin Feng made a step and slowly started walking towards them. However, Tang Yuyu remained at her initial position and didn't move at all. Everybody smiled coldly when they saw that. Lin Feng was really conceited to think he could rely on a skill he had exchanged against 7 seeds and defeat them. Besides, the enemies outnumbered them, he really wanted to die. Those 8 seeds are mine, said one of them whose silhouette flickered, and in just a moment appeared in front of Lin Feng. His eyes were twinkling. He then raised his fist and bombarded the space in Lin Feng's direction. The 2 others were looking at him and smiling coldly. They glanced at each other and in a flash, they appeared on both his left and right. At the same time, they threw themselves at Lin Feng. Of course, the first one to kill Lin Feng would be happy to get his seeds. Boom! The first one was still attacking Lin Feng as his fists crashed onto Lin Feng's body. But he was astonished, he cleared his head and looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked calm and solemn, like a golden Shakyamuni. The enemy didn't have the feeling that he had hit a human being but instead an extremely solid statue. That's the skill from the temple. That person was surprised as it was inconceivable. That person's cultivation was higher than Lin Feng's by 2 cultivation layers. However, when he punched Lin Feng with all his strength, it seemed like it had done nothing to Lin Feng at all. It was as if his strength of the 7th Xian Qi layer had been negligible. That opponent seemed like an ant trying to shake a tree. Lin Feng's body was clearly as strong as that of a Buddha's warrior attendant. It had the strength of the Vajra. Die. That person looked hideous. He condensed a massive amount of pure qi in his fist and punched Lin Feng again. In that fist he had concentrated all his pure qi. It was twinkling all around him and Lin Feng, illuminating the atmosphere. However, that pure qi just slid off Lin Feng's body and dispersed itself before vanishing. Lin Feng remained standing his ground. What the hell? How's that possible? Seeds, said Lin Feng calmly and indifferently. He then slowly raised his hand, which was surrounded by a golden light. The enemy's face was alarmed. He raised his hand to block Lin Feng's hand, but he just heard a cracking sound. The bones in his arm were completely crushed. He hadn't been able to withstand a single attack and instead emitted a horrible shriek. Following the onslaught, Lin Feng slapped his head, which exploded easily. It took only a breath for that person to die. How scary, thought Tang Yu, who was still standing behind Lin Feng. She continued staring at him. What kind of skill had Lin Feng learnt to be that strong? He was surrounded by a golden aura and looked just like a Buddha. The other 2 that remained were terrified, their hearts were pounding. They had the feeling they were suffocating from their own palpitations. How terrifying! How come Lin Feng had become so strong in the temple? Opportunities. Those were the kind of opportunities which cultivators could seize during the competition. All the extremely strong cultivators had made a mistake. After getting a few seeds, they had immediately exchanged them for skills and treasures. Then they continued to kill a few cultivators and again exchange for lower-level skills. Why hadn't anyone done like Lin Feng? First gather 7 seeds and then get into a temple to obtain their ultimate treasures. It's your turn, said Lin Feng, turning to the other 2 cultivators. He made a step towards one of them and that person's heart started pounding brutally. He didn't look greedy anymore, only terrified. Let's go. Those 2 people didn't want to steal Lin Feng's seeds anymore. They just wanted to escape alive. Where? Said Lin Feng indifferently. A hand emerged out of his mouth. It was a gigantic golden hand. That hand was emitting whistling sounds in the air as it enveloped one of their bodies. Get lost, said that person while releasing some pure qi. He then raised his 2 hands towards Lin Feng's hands. Bzzzzzzz. It seemed like an ancient bell had been hit. The moment that person's hands collided with the gigantic golden hand, he sensed a strength invading his entire arms. His bones were crushed in the blink of an eye. He couldn't stop that gigantic hand as it continued moving forwards. Boom! That person had no time left to try anything. His body started shaking uncontrollably as blood splashed everywhere. Some more buzzing sound spread in the air as his body was projected away. What the hell is with that physical strength, thought that person astonished. He was trying to fly away in the air. Lin Feng looked like a Buddha statue still. The strength of the Buddha, indestructible golden body, said a calm voice which resonated in his ears. Then another hand came attacking and grabbed his entire body. He was being shaken violently and was terrified. Bzzzzz. Some words in Sanskrit then spread in the air. That gigantic golden hand threw him away again. He crashed into the ground and sat there seemingly calm. He wasn't breathing anymore. On Lin Feng's head, more precisely between his 2 eyebrows, 2 more seeds appeared. Indestructible golden body, whispered the other one. Lin Feng looked calm and serene from beginning to end. It seemed like he wasn't worried at all. He had just managed to kill 2 cultivators of the 7th Xian Qi layer. Only one was left. Let me off, I beg you, begged the remaining cultivator. If you do, I will be your slave. You wanted to steal my seeds, should I let you off? Asked Lin Feng, looking as calm as before, but also a bit cold. That person started moaning with grief. He understood that Lin Feng wouldn't let him off. He was hopeless. I want to know, what skill did you get in the temple? Is it a D-level skill of high quality or a Tian level skill? How come you've become so strong? I didn't get any skill inside, I just obtained some memories from the antiquity, explained Lin Feng, but his opponent couldn't understand what he meant. Lin Feng jumped forwards and his Buddha hands riddled that person who died in the blink of an eye. 3 cultivators of the 7th Xian Qi layer had died. Chapter 6:18, Killing Down the Hill. What Lin Feng had obtained in the temple actually was a set of memories, good and evil ones from an ancient time. If Lin Feng hadn't learned how to use the strength of the Haruka in the past, even with his power of understanding, he would have needed much longer to understand these memories. However, he had been able to learn from them swiftly and had even destroyed the restrictions of the evil area. People had retrieved their original cultivation levels. After observing the memories, he had made the strength of the Haruka rotate in his body and could now have it rotate 6,000 times. This meant that his corporeal body had the strength of the 6th Xian Qi layer. It also meant that Lin Feng could just stand there without doing anything to protect himself. If an ordinary cultivator of the 6th Xian Qi layer hit him, then nothing would happen to Lin Feng. He wouldn't even budge more than a single millimeter. The strength of the Haruka coupled with the memories he had acquired in the temple, Lin Feng's entire body had transformed into a Buddha. With his indestructible golden body, he could easily defeat opponents of the 7th Xian Qi layer. Studying those memories had given Lin Feng an enormous advantage. Lin Feng already had 12 seeds between his eyebrows and could already use 4 of them to learn a new skill. Let's go, said Lin Feng to Tang Yuyu. Lin Feng jumped up into the air and started flying at full speed without trying to hide. He had already realized that the exterior had changed, everyone's cultivation levels had gone back to normal. Because no one could be found by their stars anymore, hunting other participants was very difficult. Lin Feng needed more seeds to go back to the first temple where he had been craving the ultimate sword skill. The sword temple had some incredible sword skills. Lin Feng had guessed that all the temples contained different skills. Tang Yuyu was closely following him at full speed. Several people noticed Lin Feng's many seeds, they wanted to steal them from him. When the crowd saw those seeds between Lin Feng's eyebrows and that he had only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer, they were in disbelief. If they managed to kill him, they would obtain 12 seeds, how wonderful would that be? 12 seeds would enable them to obtain the very best skill in one temple and a very decent skill in a second temple. Lin Feng was already going to the second temple. Where are you going? Said a cold voice as Lin Feng was passing. A sword light twinkled and then suddenly moved towards Lin Feng. Get lost. Lin Feng opened his mouth and a terrifying energy emerged out of it. Some golden words in Sanskrit started flowing out of his mouth. Boom! When the Sanskrit words collided with the sword was surrounded by a golden light. Then Lin Feng jumped forwards and raised his fist. Another seed soon after appeared between his eyebrows. Lin Feng still needed 2 more seeds, he wanted to spend 7 seeds in the sword temple to get the best skill. I need 2 more. Lin Feng jumped and rose up into the air again. His body was surrounded by a golden aura which drew many people's attention. 13 seeds. The crowd was astonished, what a huge number. Some of them decided that they definitely had to kill Lin Feng. At the same time, Lin Feng glanced at the crowd too. He was looking down at them. He had to get more seeds from them. How audacious. Who's that? How arrogant, thought the crowd while looking at Lin Feng. He was just running in the sky and not even trying to hide. Everybody could see him and he was looking back at them, how arrogant. Only the 8 most outstanding geniuses could do such things. Lin Feng glanced at the crowd and finally saw someone. That person was from Tian Feng. He could get his revenge. 2 seeds, perfect, that's exactly what I need. Lin Feng jumped towards that person without hesitation. He was acting without wasting time. That person from Tian Feng watched as Lin Feng landed in front of him and narrowed his eyes. Lin Feng's cultivation level wasn't that high, so how come he had managed to obtain so many seeds? Between his eyebrows, there were so many dazzling starlight seeds. You won't go to the nirvana, instead you will go to hell and then, said that person slowly and mockingly. Lin Feng's seeds had to end up between his eyebrows. Die, shouted Lin Feng. That person wasn't even done talking when Lin Feng interrupted him. In a flash, a gigantic golden hand appeared and flew in his direction. The atmosphere became extremely oppressive. What a terrifying magical power, thought that person whose face turned deathly pale. How could Lin Feng be so strong? It was just a moment but he was already attacking at full speed. He raised his hand and condensed some pure qi. However, the golden hand that appeared in front of it was overwhelming, comparing the two strengths seemed particularly ridiculous. Boom boom boom. The hand crashed onto the enemy's body and his bones broke into pieces. He immediately issued a horrible shriek and blood started gushing all around. Die, said Lin Feng again. In a flash, he hit him again and that person had died. He now had 15 starlight seeds, which meant he finally had 7 seeds to get the skill he wanted. Lin Feng, we can't stay here too long. We must hurry, said Tang Yu, whose face was changing drastically. Lin Feng had been too aggressive, wild and careless a moment before. He had flown through the air and everybody had seen him. Now, people were trying to encircle him all around, they were trying to find where he went. He had only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer, he was so weak in comparison with them. I see that you've been well since we parted, said a cold voice at that moment. A silhouette ran towards them from the horizon. Umo laughed mockingly when he saw Lin Feng. Boom! That person was precisely Umo. His fist was aiming at Lin Feng and he was flying at full speed. How aggressive! Lin Feng's pupils looked colder and colder. Umo had retrieved his cultivation level so he feared nobody. Lin Feng and Tang Yu were definitely going to die if they tried to fight against him, especially Lin Feng. Lin Feng had put his sword against his throat before, what a bastard. Now, he had to die in this evil area. Chapter 619, Haruka Body Transformation. When Lin Feng and Tang Yu saw Umo, they stopped and calmly stood analyzing the situation. At the same time Umo's arrival, others were rushing over still. But when they saw Umo they all stopped and stayed far away from him. They didn't dare get too close. Maybe Umo would go crazy and kill them too. They would lose their seeds. Mysteriously, they didn't know how strong he was. They did know he was one of the most outstanding young cultivators of the 4 empires of Shuiyu and he had a strange 8 trigrams eyes spirit. You all want to take advantage of the weak I see, said Lin Feng while glancing around. They didn't dare get close, they were all glaring at him like a tiger watching his prey. Lin Feng had 15 seeds. Acquiring 15 stars, having only to kill one person would be an amazing opportunity. With 15 seeds, they would be able to go a temple and obtain some incredible treasures. How could they control their greed? Get lost, all of you, said Lin Feng calmly. Those people were first alarmed and then smiled coldly. Lin Feng was quite audacious and arrogant. He surprisingly dared them to get lost. If Umo hadn't been there they would have taught Lin Feng a good lesson already. Nobody moved. They despised Lin Feng. Umo didn't hurry to attack either. So many people were around so he was trying to think about a way to obtain as many seeds as possible in this situation. There were Lin Feng's seeds but also those of all the others around. If he managed to obtain all those seeds, he would be able to learn the best skills of 3 or 4 temples. How tempting! Nobody would ever be able to stop him after that. Greed, he was greedy because he wanted to become stronger. And he was becoming greedier and greedier each second. He wouldn't only take Lin Feng's seeds but those of everyone else as well. When he saw that the crowd wasn't moving any, Lin Feng's eyes twinkled with cold lights. He then whispered something, some mysterious mantra in Sanskrit, and some golden texts written in Sanskrit were coming out of his mouth and floating in the air. More and more prayers continued to appear like that in the air. A golden light was revolving around Lin Feng's body. It seemed like many shadow hands were appearing. 1,000 Buddha hands, die, shouted Lin Feng furiously. The infinity of small Sanskrit letters in the air turned into golden hands and moved in all directions. They were so fast that people didn't have time to react. Boom, boom, boom. 1,000 Buddha hands killed some people instantly. The weakest cultivators couldn't stop the attack and their blood had splashed everywhere. The strongest ones managed to stop the attack but had the feeling that the bones in their arms were broken. That 1,000 Buddha hands attack was monstrously powerful and contained terrifying physical strength. Not to mention it was as fast as lightning. You, help me, shouted Lin Feng. Tang Yu reacted immediately. 1,000 dream shadows, shouted Tang Yu, and 1,000 clones appeared in the air. Boom! Boom! All her clones kept attacking and so many people collapsed, they were dead. Back! Quickly! Many people were trying to escape at that moment, but those who had just been attacked by Lin Feng couldn't move back. And Tang Yu's clones were extremely fast, they moved around like hurricanes and surrounded the remainders. When Tang Yu moved back to her initial position, 5 or 6 people had already collapsed and she had 10 seeds between her eyebrows. Lin Feng had shouted her name and asked for help, but Tang Yu perfectly understood that Lin Feng had just been nice. He had given her those people. He had just injured them with his golden Buddha hands and purposely left them alive. Lin Feng glanced at Tang Yu and then at the remaining enemies coldly, which made their hearts start palpitating. They had underestimated Lin Feng. Those 1,000 Buddha hands contained a physical strength of the 7th Xian Qi layer. How terrifying. With that speed and that strength they didn't have the time to react. That's what he obtained in the temple. The crowd was astonished. They were greedy and had neglected the fact that Lin Feng could have obtained an incredible skill in the temple. Yumo's eyes were twinkling. The stronger Lin Feng was, the more excited Umo was. So that was the real power of the skills he could find in the temples. 15 plus 10, that's 25, said Umo while counting Lin Feng and Tang Yu's skills. Then a magnificent smile appeared on his face. He had the impression that he already possessed those 25 seeds. They're all mine, exclaimed Umo, while releasing some terrifying, whistling, pure qi. His hair and clothes were chaotically fluttering in the wind. He jumped forwards and disappeared from his initial position. But Lin Feng's eyes were filled with sharp lights. Umo appeared in front of him in a flash. Wind. Lin Feng then moved like the wind and disappeared from his original position. At the same time, golden lights were twinkling all around his body. Do you think you can escape? Mocked Umo coldly. His pupils slowly turned white and gray and had the form of the 8 divinatory trigrams. Lin Feng had the impression that the atmosphere was distorted. He was caught off guard. He had the impression that he was walking in a swamp. He had fallen to a hallucination. Come back, shouted Umo while raising his hands. Waves of pure qi rolled in the atmosphere and surrounded Lin Feng, slowing him down drastically. That was a skill that Umo had obtained from a temple, which coupled with his 2 trigram eyes. They complemented each other very well. Die. In a flash, Umo appeared in front of Lin Feng and his 2 hands tore through the space between them. His hands hadn't reached Lin Feng yet, but he could already sense that Umo's pure qi could break his bones and tear his flesh apart. Indestructible golden body, shouted Lin Feng furiously. Some words written in Sanskrit emerged out of his mouth, and he raised his hand. Then a gigantic Buddha hand moved towards Umo, boom. Both attacks collided and the golden Buddha hand was destroyed, it then turned into countless small golden stars. Umo's hands were not hindered, they were still moving towards Lin Feng. Die! However, at the same time, an ice-cold voice pierced through Umo's ears. A hand filled with deadly energies was moving towards his back. It was Tang Yu. Get lost, shouted Umo furiously. A distortion immediately appeared in the space behind him and 8 trigrams appeared. Tang Yu was blocked. Boom! Umo's hands and Lin Feng's body collided as some crackling sound spread in the air again. His golden body was breaking apart. Destroy! Lin Feng's body was projected backwards. A terrifying and painful, scorching hot energy had spread in through Umo's hands at the moment he had hit Lin Feng. Umo frowned and condensed some pure qi, but the fire was particularly hot. He wasn't able to make it go away immediately. Boom! A terrifying qi emerged out of Umo's body and surrounded the flames. Then he turned around and his fist rocketed towards Tang Yu's body, which projected her flying backwards. Lin Feng was standing in the air and blood was flowing out of his mouth. He was fixedly staring at Umo. Umo had already broken through to the very top of the 8th Xian Qi layer. He was monstrously strong, as expected from one of the 8 most outstanding young disciples of Xueyu. Even though Lin Feng's strength of the Haruka could rotate 6,000 times, and even though he had an indestructible golden body, he still couldn't rival with Umo. Haruka's strength, Haruka body transformation, said Lin Feng looking calm and solemn. The strength of the Haruka started rotating in his body at full speed, it kept changing and evolving. Lin Feng's body was sometimes golden, sometimes pitch black. Sometimes he looked benevolent, other times malevolent. He seemed to be both good and evil. Haruka body transformation. Will Lin Feng survive or will Umo obtain the seeds of power and conquer the world? Find out next time on P. M. G. Chapter 620, Get Back into the Temple. Good and evil had been fighting and fluctuating unceasingly in those memories from the Haruka statue at the temple. There were many things in the memories to understand for those with a great power of comprehension. There were monstrous advantages for those who rediscovered them. It wasn't a specific skill or technique because skills and techniques had a maximum limit in terms of power. But those memories, the stronger a cultivator was, the stronger that magical power was. Lin Feng had extremely high natural abilities and had an incredible power of understanding. His spirit aided him in understanding things even more. The strength of the Haruka kept flowing through his entire body. Sometimes he looked like a Shakyamuni, while other times like a demon. At that moment, Lin Feng was half good and half evil. Very good, said Umo looking excited. He then disappeared from his original position again looking particularly bestial. His 8 trigrams eyes were spinning. Lin Feng then entered into a distorted part of the atmosphere again. Break, shouted a voice and then some rumbling sound spread in the air. Lin Feng's body turned into a Haruka that seemed it was as solid as a mountain. The distorted atmosphere couldn't affect him anymore. He chanted some mantras quietly in Sanskrit. Immediately after, 1,000 Buddha hands appeared and moved towards Umo, gigantic and simple, 8 trigrams blood formation, shouted Umo coldly. The chi of his spirit started invading the atmosphere and in his back appeared a gigantic ashen white 8 trigram spirit. It looked just like his eyes. Die, shouted Umo. He then stretched out and his eye spirits floated into the air. In just a breath it had enveloped Lin Feng's body. Even though he had a Haruka body, he couldn't move. The 8 trigrams kept spinning around Lin Feng's body. The golden and black lights around his body were weakening. How scary, Lin Feng was speechless. That 8 trigrams blood formation was terrifying. Even though there was no blood yet, Lin Feng could understand why it was called that. Lin Feng had a Haruka body and still couldn't move. If he had an ordinary body he would have already died. His bones and flesh would have been wrecked in the 8 trigrams. Lin Feng moved his hands and several Haruka fists attacked the 8 trigrams blood formation. The formation shook, but it wasn't enough to break it. It continued to imprison him. Tang Yuyu's facial expression went rigid when she saw Lin Feng in danger. She jumped and started pummeling towards Umo with her fists filled with deadly energy, but Umo was stronger than her by 1 cultivation layer. He wasn't scared of her at all. His ashy white 8 trigrams eyes kept revolving, and then Tang Yuyu was imprisoned. Tang Yuyu suddenly looked solemn, as if she had no other choice. Some spirit chi appeared around her and from her back appeared a myriad of illusions. 1,000 shadows, she said with a melodious voice. In a flash, a myriad of clones appeared. They weren't fake though, these were all her real body. The sky was covered by her. Those clones were all filled with incredible physical strength. Her original body was in the middle of the developing chaos. Destroy, said Tang Yuyu, and immediately 1,000 fists moved towards Umo at full speed. It seemed like she wanted to bury him under all those hands. If those hands bombarded his body, no matter how strong he was, Umo would die. Umo's expression changed dramatically. Tang Yuyu was also extremely strong. All those hands were real and filled with deadly energy, there were no illusions. 8 trigrams, shouted Umo furiously. In a flash, 8 trigrams appeared on his body, his spirit seemed like it was going to explode. His body transformed into a vortex filled with 8 trigrams. Suddenly, Tang Yuyu's original body disappeared in the vortex. The other clones weren't influenced by Tang Yuyu when she disappeared. They were still encircling Umo. It was at this time that Lin Feng shouted, "Let's go." It's important to remember that those clones were all real, none were fake. Without hesitation, Lin Feng took this opportunity to bombard the 8 trigrams vortex with physical strength. And this time he managed to break the formation. Lin Feng moved like the wind off into the distance at the speed of sound. He had managed to maintain the body of the Haruka through that endeavor. "Annihilate," shouted Umo furiously when he heard that Lin Feng wanted to escape. He was furious. His 8 trigrams vortex started spinning again and kept swallowing Tang Yuyu's clones, but those clones didn't give up and kept encircling him. They didn't let him have a moment to chase down Lin Feng. "Tang Yuyu, it's alright. Protect yourself now," shouted Lin Feng, who disappeared into the distance. Then, one of Tang Yuyu's bodies started moving at full speed away from Umo. She already possessed 10 seeds, so she could get some amazing rewards from a temple. A hurricane was emitting whistling sounds from behind. Lin Feng felt frustrated. His cultivation level was too low. When would he be as strong as the cultivator to whom the memories of the Haruka belonged? When would he be able to turn into an authentic annihilating machine, or into an authentic Haruka? If that ever happened, he would crush people like Umo as if he were an insect. With the body of the Shakyamuni or of the Haruka, he would actually become indestructible. Nobody in the world would stop him. 15 seeds, on the path, someone saw Lin Feng's seeds and rose up in the air. Lin Feng had only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer, he would be extremely easy to defeat. Lin Feng was furious when he saw that someone was attacking him again. "Die," shouted Lin Feng while raising both his hands. One was golden like the hands of the Shakyamuni and the other was black like that of the Haruka. Good and evil were bombarding the atmosphere together, some rumbling sound spread in the air. That person was not prepared for Lin Feng's attack. Boom! Immediately after, a buzzing sound spread in the air, as if it had been a death bell. The enemy was punched by those fists and a new seed appeared between Lin Feng's eyebrows. Those who were watching from the distance were astonished when they saw Lin Feng. They decided not to get any closer to him and challenge him again. They were all stunned by fear. Lin Feng had attacked with his 2 fists and had exterminated a cultivator of the 7th Xian Qi layer. Almost unfazed, he was still moving at full speed and emitting whistling sounds. It was a short time after when he finally found the Sword Temple. There's nobody inside, great, thought Lin Feng, as he rushed over to the temple. The worst scenario would have been like the first time when he wanted to get in but the door had been closed. Lin Feng would have come for nothing. If he were to remain outside waiting for the temple, others might challenge him and manage to defeat him. 60 or 70 people had already died so far during the first round. The first round would end any time now. He had to hurry if he wanted to reap his rewards. Silhouettes were approaching not far from the temple. They were glancing left and right for someone. "Stop!" shouted a voice furiously, which made them shiver. Immediately after, Lin Feng entered the temple and disappeared from their field of vision. Bzzz, buzzing sound spread in the air as the doors closed themselves. The small group was astonished, they had been tricked to stop. One shout had been enough to make them stop. And now they had to find another temple. They gnashed their teeth and left, leaving Lin Feng to the temple. Chapter 621, The end of the first round. Lin Feng didn't stop when he entered the temple. He immediately went to the 7th sword and bridges appeared between 7 of his seeds and the 7 seeds of the sword. With a flash, the mysteries of that sword started leaking into his head. Bzzz, that sword was emitting buzzing sounds, an incredible qi was moving in a swift and fierce way all around. Lin Feng's clothes and hair were fluttering violently like a flag in a strong wind. Boom boom. Lin Feng felt assaulted, he had the feeling that his brain was shaking violently. In his head appeared a vast and wild place that was seemingly endless. But then a sword descended from the highest of heavens. That sword contained a monstrous sword qi which was extremely oppressive. Lin Feng fixated on the sword and had the feeling that his entire body was trembling. Boom! Lin Feng's brain started shaking again. That sword landed on the ground and slightly penetrated into it. A vortex of sword qi appeared and it seemed like everything else started dwindling in the foreground. The universe, the earth, and the ground seemed like they had disappeared. There was only one thing in the world, that sword. Just like in the Haruka temple, Lin Feng wasn't obtaining a skill or a technique. He was obtaining a memory and in that memory there was only a vast and wild area. At the same moment outside the temple, the evil area started shaking again. Xue Wuchang remained in the air as the crowd was still standing in the same place. They were all watching as the scene changed again. Finally, it was shaking again. Was this the end? Last time that evil area had shaken there had been a great deal of changes. And then they were cut off from seeing what was happening. This time, everybody wanted to know what the results were. It was assumed that many people had died already and just as many had seized great opportunities. They were all extremely curious but they had no choice but to wait. Perhaps, even Xue Wuchang didn't know what was happening. Sharp lights were twinkling in Xue Wuchang's eyes. He was fixated on the events in the evil area while talking to himself. The 3rd temple opened. So the first round is finally over. I wonder who opened them, thought Xue Wuchang. Actually, going into the temples didn't count in itself. They couldn't be considered as opened when people had just taken the first skills. They were considered as opened only after 7 seeds had been exchanged for the greatest prize. Each time 7 were used the area would shake. Bzzz. A gigantic amount of qi started flowing in the atmosphere. The crowd only saw an enormous cloud of dust, it looked like the judgment day on the planet. Everybody was astonished, their eyes were wide open. They could only watch what was happening. The hurricane then dispersed and to everyone's disbelief, a flat area appeared. Some of the people were battling, others were practicing cultivation, but the ground was littered with corpses. The mysterious and mystical evil area had disappeared with the hurricane. Nothing was left. How intriguing and enigmatic, thought the crowd while shivering. They calmed down again and looked at those who were still alive. So many people had died during the first round and they were lying on the yellow ground. Now, there were maybe 60 or 70 people who were still alive. So about half of the initial candidates had died. How terrifying. So many incredible geniuses had been killed. All those geniuses that had died had, in the past, been dazzling cultivators respected by everybody. They had come excited, impatient, happy. They had hoped to become dazzling cultivators in the region or even the continent. But in the end, they had died and their bodies were already being devoured by worms. They had died away from home and hadn't said any farewells to their relatives. Alright, the first round of the great competition of Shuiyu is over. Everybody can stop fighting, said Shui Wuchang. His voice rolled everywhere in the air so that everybody could hear him. Fighters immediately moved away from each other and stopped fighting. Back in the evil area, the temples had disappeared. The seeds cultivators had between their eyebrows also vanished. Fighting was now meaningless. Everyone looked left and right and saw that a certain number of participants were still alive. People at the top of the mountains were being particularly attentive. They were looking for the favorites they had come to see. Notably, those people who were members of wealthy and noble families and sects. Many of their faces became rigid as they couldn't find their disciples. They must have died. They were feeling like Yulu Shui who had seen everything when his disciples died. They were also his real sons Yu Jian and Yu Qin, both killed by Lin Feng. Yulu Shui was looking for Lin Feng at this time to see if he was still alive. Quickly, he found Lin Feng sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. He looked calm and serene as he was cultivating. Yulu Shui was staring at Lin Feng coldly. But Han Man, Xiaoye and Pajun were smiling in a magnificent way. Lin Feng was safe. Yulu Shui, since you lost your 2 disciples, you have nothing to do here anymore. You should back to Shuiyu. Ha ha ha, laughed Yu Qin Shan mockingly. Yu Tianming was safe and sound. Yu Tianming was still alive, just like Wu Qing. The people of the Wan Shou sect were laughing too. Finally, the dangers of the first round were over. Wu Qing is extremely strong, he will definitely finish amongst the best ones in the final rankings, said someone next to Ting Wuyao, which made him even more proud. Wu Qing deserved to be called the most dazzling disciple of our sect, I feel honored. For the Wan Shou sect, seeing Wu Qing down there was an incredible honor. Even though the Wan Shou sect had the reputation to be extremely strong in Shuiyu, they were absolutely unknown abroad. They were not that strong compared with others from different countries. Indeed. Back then Lin Feng resisted us and now he must be dead somewhere. What a pity. Wu Qing could have killed him himself. Yu Qing Shan looked strange when he heard Lin Feng's name. His grandson. Such a genius. Was he really dead? This time, from the 144 initial participants, only 69 were left. 75 had died. More than half had died. From all of the 4 empires of Shuiyu, there wasn't one who had lost more participants than the others. They had all lost about a dozen to 20 disciples. The strongest geniuses, including the 8 most dazzling cultivators of Shuiyu, were safe and sound. Umo looked cold. He was glancing around and very quickly found Lin Feng. He was just sitting cross-legged and meditating. He looked so calm and serene. Umo was even more upset because he felt Lin Feng had obtained another treasure and was practicing it at this moment. However, Umo, one of the 8 most dazzling geniuses of the competition, hadn't obtained that much. I hope that I find you during the second round, thought Umo, glaring at Lin Feng. If Lin Feng fought against him during the second round, he would have no hope. Same goes for Tang Yuyu. That girl had surprisingly dared attack him. Even though she was beautiful, he really wanted to kill her. At that moment, a silhouette was slowly walking towards Lin Feng. That person was staring at Lin Feng darkly, his face was filled with murder. That person was from Dragon Mountain and had lots of influence, Di Long. Back in the evil area he had really wanted to kill Lin Feng, but when he saw that Lin Feng had become too strong he had to give up. Give up then and wait for his opportunity later. When Di Long thought about it, he suddenly moved and threw himself at Lin Feng. His body was surrounded by deadly energy, he wanted to take advantage of the situation and kill Lin Feng. And then Lin Feng died. The end. Yay! Fine, maybe he comes back in the next chapter, but only if you leave me nice comments. *MOEW. He had seen Lin Feng kill his two sons and hoped that Lin Feng would die there. Seeing how strong Lin Feng had become instead made him furious. 68 people, Di Long had just died so there were 68 people left. Alright. The first round of the great competition of Shuiyu is over. The second round will consist of several battles. Those who are ranked amongst the first ones will fight against the last ones and vice versa. You have to think carefully about your strategy. I'm also giving you 1 day to rest. See you tomorrow at the Flood Dragon Cave, said Shui Wuchang to the crowd, and then immediately left. Boom, a silhouette rose up in the air whose chi was monstrously strong. It was Di Long, the possessor of the firmament blood. He landed atop of a mountain as if nobody else had existed around him. Umo looked at Lin Feng coldly and said, "You better hope not to run into me during the second round." He then rose up in the air and released a terrifying, deadly energy. Lin Feng looked at him in an ice-cold way. Umo was, indeed, a terrifying opponent and was a real threat for Lin Feng. It seemed like he had no time to lose during the day before the second round. He had to understand the Haruka memories as well as the sword memories even more. Two silhouettes moved towards Lin Feng. Tang Yuyu looked as cold and elegant as before, but something rare happened. She smiled at Lin Feng and said, "Did you get it?" "I did," said Lin Feng while nodding. He then looked at her and asked, "What about you?" "Same," said Tang Yuyu while smiling resplendently. They had both obtained memories from the temples. "It seems like you two obtained some amazing treasures," said Jun Mo Shi with a magnificent smile beaming at them. Tang Yuyu and Lin Feng seemed like they had gotten real close to each other during that first round. Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu smiled. Then Lin Feng asked Jun Mo Shi, "What about you? Did you get anything?" "Well, I obtained 8 seeds but unfortunately I didn't use them all. So I obtained various, relatively good things," said Jun Mo Shi while shaking his head. It seemed like he regretted that he hadn't obtained anything great, but that was expected. Almost everybody was the same as him. Lin Feng had taken huge risks to obtain 7 seeds and receive great treasures. If Tang Yuyu hadn't helped him, he would have surely died. "Alright. It seems like people from Dragon Mountain will be lucky this time," said Jun Mo Shi smiling. Immediately after, he rose up in the air and disappeared. "See you tomorrow," said Lin Feng and Tang Yuyu. They then both rose up in the air as well and moved away into the distance. Lin Feng landed on a mountain. In the distance, he could see Xiaoya and 2 silhouettes. He was surprised but smiled, he was so happy. Those people wearing bronze masks looked strong with their robust chi. Lin Feng recognized his friends. "How come you're here?" asked Lin Feng. They both looked delighted. As expected, it really was Lin Feng. "We knew that you were going to participate at the great competition of Shuiyu, so we rushed over here to see you," explained Han Man, jumping towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng stretched his fist and punched Han Man on the chest. "You've broken through to the second Xian Qi layer, not bad." "Ha!" Han Man smiled and said, "I'm still much weaker than you." Lin Feng shook his head and looked at Yu Lu Shui, who was watching him coldly. Lin Feng didn't feel at ease with Yu Lu Shui on the mountain next to him, releasing some evil qi. Lin Feng, that bastard wanted to attack Xiaoya and us when you were down there, said Han Man, staring at Yu Lu Shui. Did you see what happened inside? Asked Lin Feng. Han Man nodded and said, at the beginning we could, but something strange happened and then we couldn't. Lin Feng just realized that he had been careless when he heard what Han Man said. He had killed Yu Qin and Yu Jian and had left Xiaoya outside alone. So, it was no surprise that Yu Lu Shui had wanted to kill him. Are you looking for trouble? Asked Yu Lu Shui, jumping forwards. He was glaring at Han Man and the others. He had clearly heard Han Man call him a bastard. Asshole, remember me? I will kill you with my own hands, said Lin Feng, looking evil. Lin Feng was calling him an asshole. Just wait and see, said Lin Feng, not caring about Yu Lu Shui's surprised look. The head of the Yu clan was an ordinary cultivator of the 8th Xian Qi layer, nothing more. Lin Feng just needed to understand the memories a little bit more and he might break through to the next Xian Qi layer. Then he would be able to crush him without any difficulty. Lin Feng might have to wait until the end of the great competition of Xueyu to kill Yu Lu Shui. Then he would go back to Xueyu and exterminate the Yu clan and the Wanshou sect. Lin Feng then remembered those people from Tianfeng. He wouldn't forgotten about them. Chapter 623, The Sword Qi in the Cave. Everyone was leaving the mountain chain to another place in Micheng, called the Flood Dragon Cave. However, some cultivators stayed to practice their cultivation. Lin Feng was one of those staying behind. After having spent some time with Han Man and Pajun, he had then handed Xiaoya over to them. They could take care of her. Lin Feng didn't want other people to see him spend too much time with Xiaoya. During the great competition of Xueyu he was going to kill even more cultivators, and that would offend their friends and families, who would then want to take their revenge. That would endanger Xiaoya, just like before with Yu Lu Shui. If they weren't strong enough to challenge Lin Feng, they would go to Xiaoya to exact their revenge. In the middle of the night, an eerie silence invaded the mountain chain. In a cave, Lin Feng was sitting cross-legged with his eyes tightly closed. There was pallid light all around him, it was a sharp sword energy. Lin Feng was visualizing a vast area where the ground was made of lust, and there was that sword. There was that sword and only that sword in the world. It looked like a simple, pure, and unadulterated sword. Lin Feng didn't look at anything else but that sword. He then penetrated into it, his body completely fused with that sword. It was nothing like the battle between good and evil when he was visualizing the Haruka statue in the temple. There were no incredible magical powers and incantations, there was only a very simple arid area and a sword. This memory was completely different from those of the Haruka. The Haruka's memories were constantly changing and were closely related to the impermanence of life. So Lin Feng challenged himself to understand the impermanence of life, the constant evolution of life. Without that mindset it would be difficult for him to understand the essence and nature of the Haruka. But that sword looked calm and serene, absolutely immobile. Lin Feng understood that the sword was selfish and egocentric, it didn't want anything else in its world so that its user could only pay attention to it. That sword embodied and personified the origin of the universe. Lin Feng was still sitting cross-legged in the cave as sword energy penetrated and threatened his body. That thread of sword energy followed the sword Lin Feng was visualizing. That sword then slowly became stronger. It didn't release any monstrous qi that dashed to the skies. Small threads of qi were just moving step by step to it and making it stronger. After what seemed to be a long time, Lin Feng's sword energy started swallowing some lights which illuminated the cave all around. It seemed like there was a myriad of dazzling swords all around him. Crrr. Crrr. Lin Feng's sword energy kept emitting whistling sounds that pierced into his ears. His sword was becoming stronger and stronger, the lights were extending all the way to the walls of the cave. It was extremely dazzling to behold. Some fissures were appearing on the walls of the cave where many small holes were being created. The sword chi was creating those fissures. Many more holes were appearing. Even the dust began to rise and float in the air. At the same time, outside of the cave on the 8 mountains, someone had jumped from the 8 mountains into the evil area. That person's skin was red, so they looked particularly evil in the middle of the night. That person stood there with an evil grin. They opened their mouth and took a gigantic mouthful of air. The corpses that were littered across ground flew into that person's mouth. He swallowed all the cadavers. He looked intoxicated, as if he had too much to drink. As expected, the taste of the geniuses' corpses of the great competition of Shuiyu was exquisite. Eating corpses enabled that person to increase his cultivation level. There was someone else standing at the top of one of the 8 mountains. He was observing the scene rather calmly, expressionless. He wasn't surprised by the human consumption. The technique which enables the Tian Sha sect to use dead qi, isomerize it, and then turn it into pure qi is really incredible. That sorcery is incredible, but you aren't relying on your own qi though, said the one at the top of the mountain. He was smiling evilly. He had a commanding presence from the top. The other one was laughing coldly. He swallowed every single cadaver calmly. It can't turn into qi, asked that person. He looked at Di Ling evilly. Di Ling, wait until the final battle at the great competition of Shuiyu. I will also swallow your body, then you won't say such things anymore, threatened Shueisha arrogantly. Di Long groaned coldly, turned around, and left. I will wait for you, said a voice in the distance, and then Di Ling disappeared into the darkness of the night. Shueisha stayed there though and jumped back onto a mountain. In the darkness of the mountain chain there were many dark coffins flying unceasingly. In another place of the mountain chain, someone was sitting cross-legged and in a special state of mind. A pitch-black coffin that didn't emit any qi at all was on his side. Then the coffin slowly opened itself and a skeleton came out. The skeleton immediately grabbed the cultivator and pulled him into his coffin. In the middle of the night a horrible shriek could be heard. But then the atmosphere became silent again. This wasn't the only one place, many other shrieks could be heard followed by an eerie silence. Shueisha was calmly observing everything that was happening. He was smiling in a particularly evil way. His face was extremely white. The people of the Tian Sha sect were happy to be in Micheng. They were eating all those cultivators practicing in the mountain chain. These cultivators were all delicious and full of nutrients. The coffins were slowly opening themselves to reveal skeletons that surprised and devoured unsuspecting cultivators. Ah! Blood splashed, a horrible shriek spread in the air which broke the silence of a cave. A skeleton had just stretched his hand out to grab a person who was practicing cultivation, but instead he had the feeling that he had grabbed the blade of a sword. His hand been cut. That sword energy was absolutely real. How was that possible? How could someone release such a terrifying sword energy? The coffin then moved back. He wanted to leave the cave, but suddenly a terrifying sword energy invaded the entire cave. Cutting sounds could be heard spreading in the air as the coffin was completely cut into pieces. A horrible shriek emerged again and the skeleton that was in the coffin was lacerated. The young man sitting cross-legged slowly opened his eyes. He looked expressionless. Then he closed his eyes again, looking absolutely unperturbed. The cave had become absolutely silent again. Outside of the cave, a coffin was precisely flying nearby and heard those shrieks. He was surprised. He signaled for 2 more coffins. They immediately turned around towards the place whence the horrible shriek had come. After a short time, they arrived next to the cave. Those 3 coffins didn't immediately enter the cave, they had decided to act slowly. The coffins slowly opened themselves and 3 silhouettes crawled out of them. They were extremely pale, livid and skinny. They gave the saying, skin and bones, another meaning. Their qi was absolutely evil. Those three monsters glanced at each other and entered the cave altogether. They saw a young man practicing cultivation. He was sitting cross-legged. At his side there was some sword chi, but it looked intangible. But then it transformed into a curtain and enveloped the young man so nobody could get near. One of the three undead walked forwards and bobbed his head as he spat out a monstrous evil chi which moved towards the young man. Sirrr sirrr. The evil chi penetrated into the curtain of sword chi and was minced. It immediately turned into smoke and then disappeared without leaving a trace. The three undead were astonished. That curtain made of sword chi was terrifying. The three people immediately moved back to leave the cave. Even though that cultivator had only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer, his battling abilities were monstrous. They couldn't compete with him and risk provoking him. Since you came, no need to leave, said Lin Feng. Immediately after he opened his eyes and a dazzling sharp sword twinkled in the atmosphere. What looked like a real sword then emerged out of his eyes and dazzled those three undead's eyes. Chapter 624, Sword Intent. Those three froze there, they were surprised by Lin Feng. Your Excellency, we didn't intend to provoke or disturb you, please forgive us, said one of the undead to Lin Feng, but remained oppressed by the sword intent. Lin Feng's strength was hard to determine, but even though the three of them had also broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer, they knew they couldn't compete with him. You didn't mean to bother me. Lin Feng smiled coldly. If he hadn't maintained a curtain of sword chi, they would have tried to kill him. When they sensed that Lin Feng was releasing cold chi, their faces started looking cold. Your Excellency, some things can be forgiven and everyone will be fine, said that undead again. He wanted everybody to forget about what had just happened. I am now awake, said Lin Feng. Humph, why do you need to try and convince him? All our comrades are everywhere in the mountains right now. If he dares touch us he will offend all of them, then they will kill him and eat his corpse, said another one, coldly trying to scare Lin Feng away. The Tian Sha sect. As expected, those three didn't look like human beings. Back then in Celestial River Lin Feng had already seen those people and their evil skills. After Emo Tsonglan had left, they hadn't been a bit lost. The Tian Sha sect had some cultivators of the Tian Qi layer. Back then, Duan Wuya had actually sealed the soul of a cultivator of the Tian Qi layer. So the undead who had just talked was trying to scare Lin Feng by officially declaring the name of his sect. Indeed, the Tian Sha sect repeated the third one as if Lin Feng hadn't heard. Lin Feng slowly stood up, his sword chi whistled in the air and invaded the atmosphere. I have already met people from the Tian Sha sect in the past and killed them, said Lin Feng. In a flash, his sword chi invaded the entire cave and obstructed the exit. It was dazzling. Those three undead were astonished as their faces dramatically changed. The entire cave was filled with sword energy, it felt as if there had been millions of arrows inside. How dare you, said those three extremely loudly while they released some ice-cold chi. Sirrr. Sirrr, his sword energy was unstoppable. Those three undead looked terrified and desperate. Boom! They started breathing heavily, the sword light was moving towards them. The walls of the cave were filled with holes created by the sword energy. As the lights closed in, their bodies disappeared. Lin Feng stretched his hand and the sword chi disappeared from the cave, but his eyes were still filled with sword lights. Sword determination, Lin Feng smiled in a resplendent smile. In the vast and arid area of the sword memories, he hadn't seen a monstrously powerful sword skill, he hadn't even seen a monstrously powerful magical power either. Instead, he had been learning about the origin of swords. He had learned about the source of sword strength and thus sword intent. Back then, without realizing, he had broken through to the first layer of sword intent. But now that he had visualized the area and that sword in the desert he had understood so much more. He had understood incredible, deep, profound and mysterious things. Now, he had already broken through to the third layer of sword intent. Within a second, he could release millions of dazzling light swords with the power of his thoughts. Of course, it wasn't all due to the sword memories. In the preceding weeks, Lin Feng's pure qi had been constricted. He had then also understood many things, his cultivation level had increased. He had meditated with Xiaoye in the mountains. It was then that he had visualized things and practiced meditation. He had watched the sun rise and the sunset. Even though his cultivation had been limited at that time, he had progressed a lot because of it. Lin Feng stepped out of the cave. Although it was pitch dark outside, things were extremely calm. Lin Feng could sense that there was an evil qi in the distance though. And that evil qi was getting near him. He gazed into the distance and saw some pitch-black coffins radiating an evil qi. Tian Sha sect, Lin Feng was standing on a stone, looking calm. He watched as the coffins flew towards him. After a short moment, they arrived in front of him with their thick, evil qi. "You dared kill the people of my Tian Sha sect," said a voice from the coffins. The coffins then opened themselves and several silhouettes crawled out of them. Their evil qi was terrifying and they were looking deathly pale. They were extremely skinny, like skeletons. Interestingly, their cultivation was higher than that of others their age. On the path of cultivation, not everyone had the same advantages and disadvantages. These walking corpses that still referred to themselves as humans looked truly abominable though. "Your people wanted to kill me, so I killed them. I don't have time to play with you. If you want to kill me, don't blame me for being aggressive." Lin Feng challenged coldly. After that his silhouette flickered, he had turned around and started leaving. He didn't want to fight. He just stepped on a sword light and surfed in the air on it. Those people from the Tian Sha sect were astonished. They went back into the coffins, which started emitting whistling sounds in the air as they began chasing Lin Feng. Lin Feng was streaking through the sky like a meteor. Not long after he moved down and arrived in front of a cave. Without hesitation, he entered that cave. The cave was extremely deep. Some small pieces of stones and specks of dust were falling onto his head. The tunnel in the cave was irregular, like it had just been dug by someone. "Who?" shouted someone furiously. A silhouette was staring at Lin Feng coldly. That person wasn't happy to hear Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked back at that person, his sick-looking face was expressionless. There was a huge ancient room in that cave where some small lights could be seen. The entrance to that ancient cave had been obstructed with time. Lin Feng realized there wasn't only one person in that cave, there were two others digging in the ground as if they had wanted to unearth something. "I'm the same as you guys," said Lin Feng indifferently. That person coldly stared at him and said, "This cave is ours. You have nothing to do here, so please leave. You just arrived. How could it be yours? Are you joking? If you found some vestiges, it would be a miracle," said Lin Feng, shaking his head. How could a cave have an owner? They had just entered it and were still digging it. Lin Feng's words silenced the people who were still digging. They gathered together and looked at Lin Feng with what only could be described as discontent. That person suddenly wanted them to share their treasures with him, or what? Was he crazy? "It's a nice place. That's why he ran so fast," said some voice from behind Lin Feng. Some evil qi had just now penetrated into the cave, everything suddenly became colder. Immediately after that voice spoke, a group of cadaveric people entered the cave. They glanced around and released some monstrously thick evil qi. That cave was surprisingly ancient. It seemed like it had a very rich history. The more ancient a cave was, the higher the chances of finding treasures. They had thought that Lin Feng wanted to escape, but instead he had left to find some treasures. "You," said the three diggers while glaring at Lin Feng. They hadn't thought that he would bring such evil people along with him. Those people were from the Tian Sha sect and were all extremely strong. The people in the cave couldn't fight against them. If they tried, they would immediately die. Since you said it's a nice place, make them leave immediately, said Lin Feng, moving aside. He crossed his arms against his chest and leaned on the wall of the tunnel, as if he had no problem at all. You bastards! The cave is yours, said the three people while gnashing their teeth, and then leaving. Their pure chi whistled as they started digging another hole in the cave and left. They were extremely good at digging holes. Chapter 625, Bloodthirsty Sword. Lin Feng was happy to see those three leave. He turned back around and coldly faced those people from the Tian Sha sect. Since you like to stay with me, I will help you, said Lin Feng, releasing some terrifying sword energy which whistled all around the air. With his mind he could release sword light and energy that was dazzling to behold. Huh! Those people were astonished, confronting Lin Feng. What a terrifying sword energy! Lin Feng had probably left the strange dimension of the human-earth fusion already and had penetrated into the dimension of sword intent. With his thoughts and heart he could release some monstrous whistling sword energy. And what a terrifying curtain of sword energy it was! Break! Lin Feng shook his arms and his sword energy started lacerating the space around him. It seemed like the cave was going to collapse as huge pieces of stone and rock were falling down. What are you doing? Asked someone furiously. The massive amount of sword energy was destroying the cave. The people from the Tian Sha sect all released some pure chi in order to prevent the massive stones from crushing their bodies. I want to bury you, said Lin Feng darkly. He then joined his hands together and whistling sword energy continued to spread in the air, it was painfully piercing those undead's eardrums. The sword energy then turned into sword light and targeted the Tian Sha sect disciples. The entire atmosphere was filled with sword light, all the exits were obstructed. It seemed like there were 1,000,000 swords there. They had no chance of dodging them, so they could only block. Let's make a wall of corpse chi, they shouted when they saw the sword energy moving towards them. They were at a loss, they had to defend against the sword energy and the falling rocks. They released some evil corpse energy and made it turn into a wall to block the swords. Fall, shouted Lin Feng furiously. Rumbling sounds spread in the air and the cave was trembling more and more violently. The people from the Tian Sha sect didn't try to dodge the stones anymore as massive stones were falling onto their heads. They had the feeling they were being buried alive with the entire cave collapsing on top of them. Lin Feng moved his fingers and some more rumbling sounds spread in the air. Under his feet, specks of dust rose up as he moved back. Even more stones were falling now. He locked himself in the room where the three others had looked for treasure a moment before. Lin Feng absorbed some sword light and turned into a sharp sword. He moved towards the wall of the cave like an arrow and pierced straight through it. Sirrr! Sirrr! He was moving quite slowly through the stones and rocks because he had the feeling there was an incredible pressure on his body. Soon, he felt like he could relax when he arrived in a new cave. As he entered this new cave he found that there was a very thick sword energy emitting somewhere nearby. I arrived, thought Lin Feng, taking a deep breath. Surprisingly, in that cave there was a large skeleton. On that skeleton there was a blood-red sword. Rumors said that after understanding sword intent you can use it on an extremely sharp sword to create a separate life inside that sword. That blood-red sword must be a monstrous weapon because it contains sword intent, maybe that sword is reacting to my sword intent, thought Lin Feng, observing the sword. He had just used his intent to escape from those people, and to make the cave collapse. Then he used it to dig a tunnel and arrived in that room to find the sword. Was it a coincidence? Everything seemed to come from his thoughts and heart. Micheng was an ancient and mysterious city. Vestiges could be found if you knew where to look. The evil area had existed for such a long time, it was normal to find miracles. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't dare waste time anymore. He had to become stronger with haste. He made a step forwards and saw that the cadaver was clinging onto the blood-red sword. He took the sword and stabbed his own heart with it as if he wanted to kill himself. Those who could use that sword had to be extremely strong. The evil swords are extremely powerful and seem to be their own masters with their own lives. Their goal is to swallow me and use my body. Because I can't control them, I need a good sword that will follow me. Lin Feng slowly held the sword even more tightly, as the red color of the sword became even more intense. It was becoming shiny and seemed to be coming to life. Sirrr. The red light illuminated the skull. The rotten body that was holding the sword then turned into ashes and disappeared. At the same time, a red light appeared and followed up the sword and into Lin Feng's hand. A red blood color appeared in Lin Feng's veins and merged with his blood. The sword recognizes me as its owner, thought Lin Feng surprised. It was a weapon with its own life. That blood sword had its own intent too and could even use telepathy. That sword was traveling in Lin Feng's body and telling him that it accepted him as a master. It really accepts me as a host, thought Lin Feng. Its red light invaded the entire atmosphere and all around Lin Feng there was only bloodthirsty killer, sword chi. The sword was shaking intensely as if stretching after sleeping for so long. Bloodthirsty sword. A memory appeared in Lin Feng's brain. A sword technique had appeared in his head, 13 bloodthirsty swords. A killer sword technique. Lin Feng's pupils shrank. That 13 bloodthirsty killer sword technique required killer energy. Had he come across this sword thanks to his murderous personality? I accept you, said Lin Feng and placed the sword on his back. It was then that the sword became calm and docile again. Lin Feng glanced around, there were no other treasures. He had only found that sword and the corpse. Lin Feng was curious how that person had died. Let's go now. Lin Feng created some incredible sword energy again to dig through the cave. The walls were extremely hard, the room he found was probably meant to be hidden. Lin Feng dug through a little bit and arrived in another opening. Rumbling sounds were spreading in the air. But it was dark so he couldn't see what was causing them. Die. A terrifying evil chi emerged and Lin Feng had the feeling his head was being crushed. That evil chi made him feel nauseous. Get lost, shouted Lin Feng furiously. A terrifying fire emerged and illuminated the dark night. Bzzzzzzzzcrrr. Flames had suddenly appeared. That person was unable to dodge Lin Feng's attack and burnt alive. His evil chi was rolling and spinning but it couldn't extinguish the flames. The fire enveloped his entire body creating huge flames. That person was now a human bonfire. Ah! A terrifying, horrible shriek spread in the air, breaking the silence of the night once more. Many silhouettes started flickering. The people of the Tian Sha sect all gathered around that place. They watched the fire burn grimly. That Lin Feng had killed another comrade. Their look was terrifying, ice-cold. Piercingly cold. They had been waiting for Lin Feng to come out. They thought that one surprise attack would be enough, they never thought that he would kill one of them first. I want to eat your flesh and drink your blood, shouted someone in a particularly evil voice. That was a cultivator of the 7th Xian Qi layer. He then continued, with a wall made of corpse chi, we should be able to eat him. They all encircled Lin Feng as a terrifying corpse chi emerged out of their bodies, moving towards Lin Feng. It seems like I'm going to need my bloodthirsty sword, thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng concentrated and some sword energy started twinkling in the air. This time it was bright red and looked particularly scary in the middle of the night. Chapter 626, One sword blood-red light was illuminating the night, it looked even more terrifying than the chi of the people from the Tian Sha sect. Besides the red light, that terrifying sword possessed intent, a life of its own life. Did he obtain that blood-red sword in the cave, they wondered, watching Lin Feng's bloodthirsty sword. Lin Feng didn't have a sword on his back when they previously saw him in the cave. But after he entered the cave and made it collapse with his terrifying sword chi, he now possessed it. What other reasoning could there be? Since my sword intent has become stronger, I haven't been able to use it with an authentic sword. I think now would be a good time, said Lin Feng coldly. A terrifying sword chi emerged out of his body and dashed to the skies. It contained terrifying killer, blood energy. Sirrr. Sirrr. That sword was emitting strident whistling sounds. Lin Feng raised his head and closed his eyes. His sword intent was already level 3. Given his cultivation level that was already monstrously powerful, Lin Feng wanted to give it a try. The evil chi the others emitted disappeared when it came into contact with Lin Feng's sword energy. Their chi had been lacerated by the sword energy and then dispersed in the form of strong winds. How strong, what a terrifying sword intent. He has only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer, how come his sword intent is so powerful, they wondered. Generally speaking, cultivators as young as Lin Feng were already considered as geniuses when they could fuse together with the earth. But Lin Feng had only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer and could use sword intent, which was enough to scare cultivators of the 7th Xian Qi layer. Lin Feng had extremely high natural abilities. The winds being created were blowing away the Tian Sha sect disciples. They felt as helpless as leaves being blown away by the autumn wind. Let me help you in leaving this world, said Lin Feng, holding his sword obliquely with both hands. He sliced horizontally in front of him. Boom! A terrifying blood-red light rose up, sword energy started to burst in the air. It whistled as it moved straight towards the people from the Tian Sha sect. The sword energy and sword chi should be sufficient to kill them. Level 3 sword intent, die, shouted Lin Feng furiously. He spun around with his sword still held in both hands. It didn't look like sword light anymore but instead blade light. An arch-shaped blood-red light moved blindingly fast. Crrrr, there were no explosions sounding this time, there were no whistling sounds. There was only a calm and peaceful sword emitting soft, subtle sounds. The people from the Tian Sha sect began to dodge but then they lowered their heads and realized they had been cut in half at the waist. How terrifying! Were they going to die? Crrrr. Crrrr, blood started flowing out of their waists where they had been cut. At first a venous bleed, slow and oozing. But suddenly it started gushing out violently. The scene was very gory as their blood flowed like a violent river. Their blood was falling downwards, gushing sidewards, and splashing towards Lin Feng's direction. All of their blood began directing itself towards Lin Feng. How strong, Lin Feng had been astonished. Level 3 sword intent was really scary. It seemingly could cut through everything. Those people of the Tian Sha sect had already broken through to the 7th Xian Qi layer, none of them could resist him. They weren't even able to escape. But now there was blood flying towards him, what was the reason for that? Lin Feng quickly understood what was happening. That blood was penetrating into his body and mixing with the bloodthirsty sword. The bloodthirsty sword was shiny as it started vibrating. It seemed like it was drinking the blood. It had an extremely greedy and endless craving for blood. It was a vampiric sword. A bloodthirsty sword. Bloodthirsty indeed, whispered Lin Feng. He finally understood the meaning of bloodthirsty. That sword liked to drink blood. Ah! Blood-curdling shrieks continued spreading through the night. Those from the Tian Sha sect were extremely sly and evil. Their skills and techniques were demonic, but now something even more corrupt was punishing them. Death. That was death. They used to eat other people's flesh and drink their blood, what incredible times those were. But now the table was turned. That sword had cut through them and was drinking their blood. The worst part was that they were still alive. What is going on? There were many people in the distance that heard the blood-curdling shouts. Who could be causing them? And it wasn't a single shriek. They could tell that there were multiple persons suffering. Several more coffins flew over there. Apart from the Tian Sha sect, others who were practicing cultivation were in the mountain chain and had been surprised. Their silhouettes flickered as they rushed over to see what was going on. At the top of one of the 8 mountains, Shui Sha had his eyes closed and was practicing cultivation. But then he opened his eyes and frowned. Where were those shouts coming from? He stood up and gazed into the distance. He decided to go see what was happening, as his silhouette flickered into the sky. Lin Feng was still standing in the air with his bloodthirsty sword drinking their blood. The red light was oscillating and illuminating the air around him. After such a long time, it still wanted to drink more blood. Lin Feng's eyes were gradually turning red like blood, making him look like a demon. The sword and he were communicating by telepathy. Extremely strong cultivators could influence swords and sword intent. Oppositely, extremely strong swords could influence cultivators. Lin Feng was using telepathy to tell the bloodthirsty sword to become stronger and to drink more blood. Drinking blood was the same as cultivating to that sword. When Lin Feng saw all those silhouettes rushing over to him from all directions, he decided that now was a good time to run away. 2 pitch-black coffins were moving towards Lin Feng. He produced sword intent again and cut through them. A loud sound spread in the air, the coffins were disintegrated as well as the people inside them. But this time Lin Feng didn't stop, he had no time to let his sword drink their blood. He started moving at full speed through the night. Nobody else tried to impede him. "Who did that?" shouted a furious voice. It spread all around the mountain chain, making everybody shiver. It was Shui Sha's voice, one of the 8 most outstanding geniuses of Xueyu. The people who had been killed were from the Tian Sha sect. They had come with others from the Black Wings Empire and had died there. In the air, a silhouette appeared and looked panic-stricken. Initially, he had wanted to intercept Lin Feng when he had come out of the tunnel in the mountains. But when he saw so many people already there to intercept him, he believed that they wouldn't need his help. But now that he had seen everything, he was panicked. "Do you know who did this?" Shui Sha asked him. "It's the guy who was attacked by surprise at the end of the first round of the competition." Shui Sha was surprised. He had, of course, seen that move at the end of the first round. "You are doomed," said Shui Sha while gazing into the distance. His face was filled with murder. Shui Sha wanted his Tian Sha sect to see how amazing he was in the competition. So many people who had come to support him had died now. Lin Feng hadn't given him any face. Lin Feng had to die, he was doomed. Chapter 627, The discussion one day wasn't endless, time passed very quickly for the competitors. The Flood Dragon Cave is where the second round of the competition would take place. It was extremely wide, maybe a few dozen kilometers. There wasn't just one entrance, surprisingly, there were several. There were Flood Dragon statues around the entrances with their mouths acting as entrances. In total, there were 81 Flood Dragon statues in the form of a 9x9 formation. It was strange because there was only one exit. The exit is where the main stage was placed. After going through the Flood Dragon's mouths, participants would arrive before the main stage. It seemed like everything had been prepared quite well for the second round of the competition. In front of each Flood Dragon statue, a brouhaha was spreading. Each entrance was like a boiling cauldron of voices. So many people were in front of the mouths of the dragons chatting, they had been waiting for this day for a long time. They couldn't wait to watch the spectacle of the second round, and then the final round. Who would be the most dazzling cultivator of the great competition of Xueyu? Besides, the candidates had already gone through the hardships of the first round and many of them had died. There was initially 144 participants, but now there were only 68. Were more people going to die? Nobody could predict anything. In the distance, there were more and more people coming. Di Ling was as unsociable as before, coming by himself. He had flown through the air and landed on the head of a flood dragon. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. He didn't care about other people, so he ignored them. In his world he thought he was the only person of importance. Xuexia was there too, though he had arrived much earlier. In the same way, he landed next to Di Ling and glanced at the crowd. He was trying to see if Lin Feng was there or not. If Lin Feng came across him during the second round, he would definitely die. However, he couldn't see Lin Feng, so he must not have arrived yet. Several more people were walking towards those flood dragon statues. In the distance there were two Qi Xie horses walking slowly. On one of them there were two silhouettes, they were both wearing bronze masks. On the other horse, there was one cute and pretty girl. Not far from those two Qi Xie followed several others. They were also walking towards the flood dragon statues. Lin Feng was one of them. He wasn't far from those two Qi Xie horses, he looked calm, serene and had a nice smile on his face. He had broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer and looked like an ordinary young man. Who would think that on the night before, he had used a sword which had drunk the blood of a few dozen extremely strong cultivators of the Tian Sha sect. He had destroyed them all with one sword. Lin Feng looked like a little sunshine, not a fighter. At the same time he looked like someone frivolous with a good joke to tell. Lin Feng didn't talk to Han Man and Pejun, he was staying away from them as if he didn't know them. Someone was glaring at Lin Feng coldly, it was Yu Lu Shui. He obviously knew that Lin Feng was with them. Even though Yu Qin and Yu Jian were already dead, Yu Lu Shui didn't want to leave Mi Cheng. He wanted to stay there and avenge his sons. He couldn't kill him right now though. He had to wait until the end of the competition. Lin Feng didn't pay attention to him. He knew that Yu Lu Shui wanted to kill him after the great competition of Xueyu. But Lin Feng believed that he would be the one killing Yu Lu Shui in the end. A few silhouettes flickered and arrived between Lin Feng and the Qi Xie horses. Lin Feng was surprised, but quickly he looked normal again, as if he hadn't been surprised. "Are you from Xueyu?" asked Yu Qing Shan to Han Man. If Yu Qing Shan wasn't mistaken, those horses were Qi Xie horses. The soldiers protecting the border of the country were using those very horses. Even though Yu Qing Shan wasn't a member of the army, he had heard all of Lu Tsonglan's stories. In fact, Yu Qing Shan admired Lu Tsonglan. Even though the army was just some of the king's pawns, they were extremely strong pawns. Their strength was acknowledged by everybody. Military members, even though they were pawns, always paid tribute and respect to their king. They were ready to sacrifice their lives for their country. "My three brothers are," "I'm not," said Xiaoya while smiling resplendently. "3 brothers?" Yu Qing Shan was looking at Han Man and Pejun. There were only 2 people, he turned around to look at Lin Feng curiously. Lin Feng was a participant at the great competition of Xueyu. If he were from Xueyu, Yu Qing Shan would definitely know him or at least would have heard about him. "You are from Xueyu?" asked Yu Qing Shan curiously. He had never heard of Lin Feng before. Lin Feng smiled wryly, Xiaoya had committed a gaffe. "Indeed," said Lin Feng calmly while looking at his grandfather. He wanted to tell him that he wasn't only from Xueyu but was also his grandson, that they shared the same blood. Yu Qing Shan recognized Yu Tianming as his grandson, but not Lin Feng. He wanted Duan Xianyi to become Yu Tianming's wife. Lin Feng would never accept such a thing, and it made him sad that Yu Qing Shan was like that. During the competition, Yu Tianming and Lin Feng might fight. It would be difficult for Lin Feng not to show his true colors then. He would have to use his skills and everything. Sometimes, Lin Feng wanted to see Yu Qing Shan look remorseful. He wanted to prove to Yu Qing Shan that he was more outstanding than Yu Tianming. Yu Qing Shan obviously didn't know about Lin Feng's thoughts though. When he saw that Lin Feng was admitting he was from Xueyu, he was even more surprised. Forgive me, but I know almost all the geniuses of Shuiyu and I've never seen or heard of you. Your Excellency, what is your name? Mr. Yu, head of the Yu clan, is very famous. But you cannot possibly know everybody, said Lin Feng while smiling. Yu Qingshan was astonished. Mr. Yu, head of the Yu clan, it meant that Lin Feng knew him. He was really from Shuiyu. Alright, maybe, said Yu Qingshan while nodding. Then he shouted, Tian Ming, come here. Do you know that outstanding and handsome young man? He says he's from Shuiyu. Yu Tianming came over and looked at Lin Feng. He of course knew about him, he had seen him in Dragon Mountain. Lin Feng's corporeal body was monstrously strong. He had impressed everybody. Besides, Lin Feng seemed to be progressing extremely fast on the path of cultivation. In Dragon Mountain, he hadn't even broken through to the Xian Qi layer and now he had already broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer. For anyone else it would be impossible. Yu Tianming knew that Lin Feng had been hiding his real cultivation level. But that guy who had the same name as Lin Feng was now saying that he was from Shuiyu. Since when? Grandpa, that guy was qualified for the competition in Dragon Mountain, and his name is Lin Feng too, said Yu Tianming. Yu Qingshan was astonished. His white hair fluttered in the wind and then quickly stopped moving again. Lin Feng. Yu Qingshan was looking at Lin Feng. That young man was also called Lin Feng, but he wasn't like the Lin Feng he knew. He was however saying he was from Shuiyu. Indeed. I also know that Mr. Yu knows another person called Lin Feng. What a coincidence, said Lin Feng, smiling indifferently. Yu Qingshan slowly calmed down again, but Yu Tianming was fixated on Lin Feng. Lin Feng, when he had appeared in Dragon Mountain, had never said that he was from Shuiyu. He also had never said anything in particular, actually. But now he was saying that he was from Shuiyu and also seemed to know a lot about the Yu clan. He even knew Lin Feng. It seemed too exaggerated. Yu Tianming was finding it harder to believe. It's really a coincidence, said Yu Qingshan while smiling and nodding. The fact that we met here at the great competition of Shuiyu is fate. You and Yu Tianming should become friends, you can exchange a lot. He has lots of experience. Mr. Yu is very strong, you are not a young man anymore. Yu Tianming is also extremely talented and very strong. Neither of you have anything to learn from me, said Lin Feng modestly. Yu Tianming understood what Lin Feng meant and said, alright, we're not going to bother you anymore. Then Yu Qingshan and Yu Tianming left and walked away. However, Lin Feng's silhouette kept appearing in Yu Qingshan's thoughts, especially his face and eyes. Lin Feng was so young but looked so deep. Chapter 628, Enemies and Friends. Lin Feng was following the Qi Xie horses, not too close, not too far as they arrived next to the statues. He looked at the 81 statues, especially at their mouths. Lin Feng's eyes were twinkling, he was wondering what kind of treasures were hidden in them. During the first round, in the vast evil area, there had been temples with incredible skills, techniques and memories inside. The second round was taking place in the Flood Dragon Cave. It was probably going to be very difficult too, at least more so than the first round. The rules had to be different as well, so there would probably be no temples this time. How would the candidates be selected if it wasn't more difficult? This time, the battle would determine everyone's specific rankings for the battles of the last round, so nobody would spare any effort. Everyone wanted to be ranked amongst the first ones so that they wouldn't have to fight against the strongest cultivators. If they had to fight against one of the 8 most outstanding geniuses, they would immediately lose. An ice-cold qi spread out into the air and crashed onto Lin Feng's body, making him frown. He turned around and saw Xue Sha. Xue Sha. Lin Feng was surprised and staring at Xue Sha. Die, shouted Xue Sha. Everybody was speechless, looking at Lin Feng. Xue Sha released some monstrous deadly energies but didn't attack him. With that word he wasn't saying that he was going to kill him right away, he was telling him that sooner or later, he would die. It seems like Xue Sha knows about what happened yesterday, thought Lin Feng. He had to be very careful. At the great competition of Xueyu, too many people wanted to kill him already, Umo, Xue Sha. The crowd looked at Lin Feng with empathy in their eyes. Xue Sha wanted to kill him. He was doomed. He had only broken through to the 5th Xian Qi layer and he was acting so recklessly. Last time, he had already infuriated Umo, this time Xue Sha. Against all expectations, Lin Feng looked calm and serene. He just calmly stood there. It seems like many people want to kill you, said someone mockingly. It was someone from Tianfeng. Of the 7 envoys from Tianfeng, 4 were dead already, so there was now only 3 left. Lin Feng smiled strangely when he said, indeed. During the first round, you all wanted to kill me but now I am still alive. Unfortunately, I see that 4 of you are already dead. I wonder if any of you will make it to the 3rd round. Huh, said Lin Feng, silencing them. They were coldly glaring at Lin Feng. Already 4 of them had died. That didn't leave them in the best position. 4 people at the scale of the competition wasn't such a large number, they were initially 144 people. More than half of them had died during the first round, so the fact that 4 people from Tianfeng had died was unsurprising. They may have died, but don't think you are exempt from death, said the first envoy of Tianfeng, Nia Yun. Lin Feng was making fun of Tianfeng and knew what their tender point was. Let's hope so, for your sake, said Lin Feng indifferently. His name is Lin Feng. Many people were trying to remember his name. He was courageous, brave, and audacious. He had so many enemies but still managed to survive the first round. And in the end, with the strength of the 5th Xian Qi layer, had managed to move on to the next round. However, he would probably end amongst the last ones in the rankings and end up fighting against the strongest cultivators. You have many enemies, someone said. A silhouette flickered and appeared next to Lin Feng. That person looked cold and elegant. Lin Feng smiled resplendently. Long time no see. Ha! Tang Yu was surprised, they had seen each other just the day before. Let's say I missed you, said Lin Feng, smiling shyly, what an awkward situation. You guys arrived, said Jun Imo Shi to Tang Yu and Lin Feng. He looked at them and said, this time, you really have to finish amongst the first ones. Then you won't have to fight against the strongest ones till later. I know that I will finish amongst the best ones, said Lin Feng. Against all expectations, he had absolute faith in his own abilities. Didn't he know that with his strength of the 5th Xian Qi layer, he was easy to defeat? He surprisingly thought he was going to end up high in the rankings. The crowd was surprised when they saw Jun Mo Shi and Lin Feng, they seemed to be good friends. Besides, only he was friendly to such people. The other 7 geniuses were extremely arrogant and solitary. They looked down upon everybody else. Jun Mo Shi was the only genius who was standing with ordinary people. The 7 other geniuses were sitting or standing on the heads of the flood dragon statues while Jun Mo Shi was calmly standing amongst the crowd. And he even seemed to be friends with a cultivator of the 5th Xian Qi layer. Jun Mo Shi was quite strange. I'm late. Sorry, said Yunfei Yang while sluggishly walking over to them. He looked calm and unrestrained. So what do you think? Do you think you will manage to finish amongst the first 20 best cultivators? Asked Yunfei Yang to Lin Feng. No idea, said Lin Feng shrugging. He adding, what about you? Me? Asked Yunfei Yang. He shrugged and said, I survived the first round, I'm happy already. If I manage to move on to the next round, that would already be incredible. Yunfei Yang then stretched himself. The sky was particularly blue on that day, making him feel extremely free, unrestrained, and carefree. The second round would start soon. Do you think I believe you? whispered Lin Feng. Yun Fei Yang was always like that, since the selection rounds at the Xiangjiang Lake. He had always acted sluggishly, he was also quite frivolous. Looking like he cared about nothing. Lin Feng was starting to understand him. I'm here. In the air, someone suddenly appeared and it was Xue Wuchang. He had arrived. It meant that the second round of the great competition of Xueyu was about to start. Xue Wuchang looked down at the crowd from the sky. The rules of the second round are extremely easy. You all have to enter the Flood Dragon Cave from a different entrance. Then you have to go through as fast as you can. On the other side there are some jade medals with numbers on them. When you pick one up you will see a number. That number will be your ranking, said Xue Wuchang. The participants then all nodded one after the other. The rules were simple indeed, it was all about getting ranked. I would like to remind you of something. Don't procrastinate because of other things. The best plan is to pick up a jade medal as fast as possible. If you finish amongst the first ones you will be able to choose your opponents. The most important thing for most of you is to choose your opponent after all. It is worth mentioning that if you finish amongst the first ones, you cannot challenge someone else from the top 10, said Xue Wuchang. Everyone was in an uproar. The first ones would be able to choose their opponents. They would have to make great efforts to finish amongst the first ones. But Xue Wuchang was worried to see the most outstanding geniuses of the competition challenge each other immediately. So he added an extra rule, they simply weren't allowed to. Such battles were better saved for the end of the competition. Interesting rules, thought Lin Feng. The extra rule was fair. The strongest cultivators wouldn't be the only ones to decide everything. It was quite equitable. If I manage to finish amongst the first 10, nobody will be able to challenge me, thought Lin Feng. His eyes were twinkling with determination. Chapter 629, The Flood Dragon Cave. Of course, when Xue Wuchang finished talking, Lin Feng wasn't the only one thinking that. The others were all thinking that they had to finish amongst the first 10 cultivators. Even if they weren't as good as the 8 most outstanding geniuses of Xueyu, they still had 2 free spots to finish in the top 10. They must leave no effort wasted if they wanted a chance to move forwards. Now, there are 68 people. Please all move to different entrances and get ready for the beginning of the second round, said Xue Wuchang. In a flash, silhouettes started flickering and the participants appeared in front of the mouths of different flood dragons. They were all releasing pure qi and condensing it. The second round of the great competition of Xueyu was actually a race. They had to cross the Flood Dragon Cave in the shortest time, then they could end up in a better situation for the final stage. There were 81 statues, so 31 of them had nobody in front of them. It seems that nobody went missing the night before. And who would have dared to be late? The great competition of Xueyu only happened once every 10 years. That competition would maybe enable them to have a great future. G.O., said Xue Wuchang, raising his hand. Everybody released a monstrous amount of qi and delved into the Flood Dragon Cave. Nobody wasted time. They had to get the first jade medals. And then they would be able to choose their opponents. They could survive the onslaught of the top 8. Lin Feng didn't hurry that much though. He released some monstrous amounts of energy and then entered the cave. His silhouette looked blurry at that moment, but he actually was moving very slowly. Actually, Lin Feng didn't believe that it was a race at all. Otherwise, the second round would have been way too slow. From outside he had noticed that only a few steps were required to walk from one statue to the other end of the cave. Xue Wuchang watched as they entered the Flood Dragon Cave. He then rolled up his sleeves and made a step towards the other extremity of the cave. He was going to wait at the exit. The audience did the same and moved towards the exit. In a short time, the exit of the cave was surrounded by people and the entrances were left completely barren. Everyone was remaining silent. Some pedestrians were passing by the entrances sometimes, they had the feeling that the silence was too oppressing. It didn't take long for the exit of the Flood Dragon Cave to become a boiling cauldron of voices, people were close and numerous. Everybody was watching the exit, calmly waiting. I wonder which of the 8 most outstanding disciples will finish first, various comments were spreading in the crowd. Indeed, which one of the 8 most outstanding disciples was the strongest? Those crowd could only guess randomly at that moment. There was no way to predict what would happen. Several were guessing that Di Long was the strongest, while some others thought it would be Duan Wu Dao. They had heard about Duan Wu Dao and just how monstrously strong he was. His sealed door's spirit could seal anything. His spirit was too terrifying. Nobody could stop him. Of course, others were betting on Jun Mo Shi as he was extremely enigmatic. Everybody was guessing one of the 8 amazing geniuses, obviously it had to be one of them. But who would be the first one out? Even though people knew that they wouldn't come out too fast, they were still staring at the exit. They were impatient to see who it would be. Lin Feng entered the cave and saw a valve. A huge water valve. Lin Feng could see himself in the water of that door. Lin Feng moved forward and crossed the water valve. Some ripples and waves appeared, but then the door disappeared into a spiral. Around the door there were lights that looked like pure qi. His silhouette flickered as he moved forwards and looked around. In front of him several people appeared as rumbling sounds spread in the air. Gigantic monoliths were moving out and transformed into a wall that obstructed his way. Are they people? Lin Feng was baffled. Were those people made of stones? They could move by themselves and create obstacles to obstruct Lin Feng's way. Humph. Lin Feng smiled coldly and made a step forwards. Those were only stone puppets, nothing more. Even though they had human shapes, they probably couldn't rival with human beings. Boom boom boom, several stone fists launched towards Lin Feng. They were allowing him to come closer. Lin Feng could clearly sense their physical strength. Those stone fists had the physical strength of the 5th Xian Qi layer. Like me? Lin Feng raised his hands and a golden light suddenly appeared. It looked dazzling, pure and holy. Boom boom. Those stones immediately broke. The stone puppets were indeed as strong as Lin Feng, however, Lin Feng could easily crush people of the same level as him. After he destroyed the stone puppets, Lin Feng continued to walk forwards when another water vortex appeared in front of him. Lin Feng frowned but didn't stop. He was about to get through that door when a silhouette came out of it. Lin Feng immediately stopped because he was surprised. It was him. The silhouette coming out of the door was him, exactly the same person. That silhouette was even wearing the same mask as him. They were absolutely the same, just like clones. Ha! Lin Feng frowned and stared at the silhouette. That person was himself. How was that possible? Did the first water door clone me when I crossed it, thought Lin Feng. That was the only explanation. He couldn't think of anything else. I knew that the Flood Dragon Cave would be extremely complex. I'm not the only one experiencing this, it should be the same for everybody else. This is a battle, I have to fight against myself and surpass myself. Change my state of mind. Lin Feng made a step towards that silhouette, but the silhouette copied him. Boom! A collision sound spread in the air. That counterfeit and him moved back to where they were. Their movements were exactly the same. It has the same strength as me too, thought Lin Feng, stupefied. How come? He couldn't figure it out. Die! Lin Feng jumped forwards and released some killer energy which was ice cold. At the same time, the counterfeit also released the same killer energy. Lacerate. Some tearing sound spread in the atmosphere. Lin Feng was staring at the counterfeit. Lacerate. As Lin Feng had expected, the silhouette said and did the same thing. The two killer chi collided and made the cave shake. Then the sword energies collided and disappeared together. I have to stay calm and cool-headed, thought Lin Feng. He slightly closed his eyes and then opened them again. He was smiling resplendently. Lin Feng slowly walked forwards, very calmly. He wasn't releasing any energy or using any tricks. He was absolutely calm and serene. The other Lin Feng also walked towards him until they touched each other. See you. Lin Feng slightly inclined his body. The counterfeit did the same and they passed next to each other, slightly brushing the other's arms. Bzzz. The sound of their clothes rubbing could be here, and then the clone evaporated like steam and disappeared. Almost as if it had never been there. I'm so stupid, I've made a huge mistake. But I'm sure all the others will make the same mistake and think that they have to defeat themselves, thought Lin Feng. Actually, Lin Feng was right. Most of the other people had the same idea as him and thought that they had to defeat themselves to get past the clone. The harder they tried to fight, the further they were from victory. That was just a water illusion set there to test their hearts. Chapter 630, Rushing through the Flood Dragon Cave in order to defeat one's own self, strength wasn't key. It is their heart and state of mind. In order to break through to higher cultivation layers, one's heart and state of mind were extremely important. Otherwise one's cultivation could start stagnating at some point. The tests of the Flood Dragon Cave couldn't only be related to strength, it wouldn't be that simple. Lin Feng then crossed the water valve and was left speechless again. There was a passageway in front of him, but it was made of magma and filled with monstrously scorching hot fire qi. From outside, Lin Feng could already sense the horrible heat. He had even started sweating profusely. How hot, thought Lin Feng, staring at the flames. The entire passageway was filled with flames. They were diffusing a light which looked almost illusory. The physical strength contained in that fire has the strength of the 6th Xian Qi layer. It seems like the Flood Dragon Cave is adapting to my cultivation level as I progress further in, thought Lin Feng, smiling. It was just adapting to his relative strength, nothing more. In fact, his cultivation level and fighting abilities were incomparable. That fire of the 6th Xian Qi layer couldn't be a problem for him. Lin Feng jumped forwards as he released some fire qi which surrounded his body. Then he penetrated into the fiery passageway. Roar! A fire dragon emerged out from the flames and darted towards Lin Feng. But when it collided, it suddenly became much weaker. His cosmos-burning sun was a sun skill and required sun fire. It was much stronger than a normal and ordinary fire. Let's swallow the fire, thought Lin Feng. Then his cosmos-burning sun started revolving and a terrifying vortex of strength appeared all around his body. The fire surrounding him started moving towards his body. Instead of stopping Lin Feng's own fire, it was being swallowed, it was becoming a part of Lin Feng's fire. Roar! Another roaring sound spread through the air. In front of Lin Feng appeared several terrifying flames. They looked like fire beasts that were made of fire. Lin Feng made a move and his banner appeared in his hand. It was his spiritual fire banner. Go! Lin Feng shook his head and the banner moved forwards with a terrifying strength radiating from it. The fire beasts were enveloped by the banner and disappeared, swallowed by it. To add, the fire of that banner had become denser and more powerful. The entire passageway could make me stronger, thought Lin Feng. He kept walking forwards, around his body a fire was burning. It was even more violent than before. The banner continued swallowing fire along the way. Now and then, some terrifying lights would appear. But they couldn't affect Lin Feng at all, instead they became part of Lin Feng's strength. After a few kilometers, Lin Feng sensed that he was arriving at the end of the passageway. The fire had disappeared. Lin Feng was disappointed because he didn't want to stop. He had the impression he hadn't swallowed enough fire yet. He then left the passageway and saw a passageway. On the right and the left of the passageway there were tunnels which were crisscrossing. Those tunnels should have led to the other tunnels where the other participants were. But Lin Feng couldn't see anyone. How strange. If I maintain this speed, not only will I finish amongst the first 10 best, I will finish first, thought Lin Feng determined. He saw that there were many tunnels and holes everywhere. The one in front of him was probably the best one. The problem with all those tunnels crisscrossing was that it reminded him of a labyrinth. A maze that you could get lost in. Lin Feng started forwards and without hesitating started running. Since he didn't know the way, his best idea was to trust his heart. Hesitating was only a waste of time anyways. There was absolutely no sound in that passageway, only an eerie silence. "Welcome," said a mysterious voice suddenly. Lin Feng stopped and looked in front of him. There was a light beam that stopped when a human silhouette appeared. That silhouette had the demeanor of a transcendent being. It was floating in the air like a celestial being with pure and holy qi. The silhouette slowly walked towards Lin Feng. It was an old man. The old man smiled at Lin Feng in a warm and gentle way and said, "You're the first one to arrive here, so I will grant you a wish, don't be shy." "Anything?" "I can ask for anything," said Lin Feng, sounding a bit suspicious. "Indeed, anything," replied the old man. "Are you sure that you can grant any wish?" said Lin Feng. "Trust me," said the old man in a warm and gentle way, smiling warmly. Lin Feng nodded indifferently, walked next to the old man, and smiled resplendently. "Are you done thinking?" asked the old man in a gentle voice. "My request is—" "Piss off," said Lin Feng with the same smile on his face. He then turned into a terrifying sharp sword and attacked the old man. The old man was surprised. Now he looked like an illusion even more. Then he slowly disappeared. Lin Feng looked behind him and then continued running forwards. He had only one thought: move forwards. Lin Feng didn't believe that there were celestial beings who could grant people any wish. The only thing people could realize were those with which strength and cultivation enabled them to do. Being able to grant any wish was just ridiculous. Who could do that? If Lin Feng had said that he wanted to become the strongest cultivator of the continent of the 9 clouds, what would the old man have done? Nothing. On the path of cultivation, there were some miracles, but no miracle could enable you to make gigantic progresses in the blink of an eye. That was simply impossible. Therefore, Lin Feng had immediately attacked him with his sword-like body. He had already crossed 2 water valves and now all Lin Feng wanted was to obtain the jade medal, nothing else. He wanted to be able to choose his opponent for the upcoming battles. Now, nobody can be faster than me, thought Lin Feng, convinced. He hadn't seen anyone in that maze before, which meant that they hadn't arrived yet. Finally, Lin Feng stopped after running for a while. In front of him was a gigantic flood dragon illusion. It opened its mouth and inside was a bridge. It seemed like it was becoming more and more narrow as you went down. That is the other side of the flood dragon cave, thought Lin Feng, raising his head. He could see something on the other side, but he wasn't sure because there were still many other tunnels. Those might be where the previous tunnels lead. He looked pensive for a few seconds and then immediately continued running forwards. On the bridge, 9 silhouettes appeared. They were all wearing flood dragon gowns and had their hands behind their back. They looked fake and real at the same time. Lin Feng stopped and inspected them. Their eyes were all closed and they weren't looking at Lin Feng at all. The 5th one abruptly opened his eyes, cold lights were twinkling in them. He was fixated on Lin Feng. They were obstructing Lin Feng's way on the bridge. Lin Feng continued running faster and faster. On his body appeared a terrifying, whistling sword energy. His entire body was surrounded by a sword light. The 5th person frowned when he saw Lin Feng's sword qi. They then also released some monstrously powerful qi. That person had only broken through to the 5th Xian qi layer. "Get lost," shouted Lin Feng, and his terrifying sword chi dashed to the skies and enveloped the enemy's body. Boom! The sharp sword chi crashed onto the enemy, and the fifth person disappeared. As expected, they're fake, thought Lin Feng, but he still looked calm and vigilant. Die! Lin Feng's sword energy kept shooting upwards. He arrived in front of the sixth person but didn't stop. The sixth one had the strength of the sixth Xian Qi layer, but just as quickly, they disappeared. Chapter 631, the ninth person. The sixth person disappeared, but Lin Feng didn't look so happy. He looked solemn. The seventh silhouette had the strength of the seventh Xian Qi layer. There were still the eighth and ninth ones. Their respective strengths were of the eighth and ninth Xian Qi layers surely. As expected, the last thing that matters here is strength, thought Lin Feng, releasing even more sword chi and attacking the seventh person. The seventh person was staring at Lin Feng and looked surprised, just like a real human being. Lin Feng had only broken through to the fifth Xian Qi layer and already possessed such a monstrous sword intent and energy. Sirrr. Sirrr. Lin Feng's body was spitting out monstrous sword light. It looked tangibly sharp, like it could cut through anything in the world. Sword intent kept emerging. In Lin Feng's hand appeared a whistling sword. Level 3 sword intent, lacerate, shouted Lin Feng. He rose up into the air and his sword streaked through the air, separating the sky. Under that energy the seventh person turned into an illusion and became seemingly ghost-like. Boom, the seventh person disappeared. Lin Feng landed on the floor and continued running towards the eighth person. But he finally stopped and took a deep breath. The two remaining had the strength of the eighth and ninth Xian Qi layer respectively. They would be hard to defeat. How strong, said the eighth person. You are so young. If the great competition of Shuiyu had been a few years later, you definitely would have been the most dazzling young genius. Unfortunately, you were born a few years too late. Lin Feng had only broken through to the fifth Xian Qi layer and had managed to make it there. He had already crushed the first several people while running across the bridge. He defeated the fifth, sixth and seventh ones with a single sword attack. Lin Feng could be proud of himself. If you were a little stronger, you would be able to defeat me. Then you would obtain the 11th jade medal because you're the first one to arrive here. If you were even stronger and managed to defeat the ninth person on the bridge, you would obtain the first jade medal likewise. However, you have already reached your limits because you cannot defeat the one after me. At best you will only be able to obtain the 11th jade medal, explained the eighth person. Lin Feng was shocked. As expected, strength had always been a limit. He was the first to arrive. If he managed to defeat the eighth person, he would obtain the 11th medal. Defeating the seventh one would have enabled him to obtain the 21st jade medal. If he had been even weaker and had only managed to defeat the sixth one, he would have ended up getting the 31st jade medal. Even if he had arrived first. That Flood Dragon Cave challenge was extremely difficult. You shall not pass, shouted the eighth person as he attacked. Lin Feng's golden body started cracking under the pressure, but he ignored it. He opened his mouth and spat out some terrifying sword chi, catching the eighth person off guard. Some terrifying pure chi enveloped his head, but the sword chi pierced through it. Subtle sound spread in the air. Burn, shouted Lin Feng when suddenly fireballs emerged out of his mouth and enveloped the pure chi surrounding that person's head. There was no way the eighth person could have been ready for that. It's time now, shouted Lin Feng. He suddenly moved like the wind above the eighth person and landed behind him. The eighth person turned around and looked at Lin Feng while smiling. Congratulations. You did it. Now you can obtain the 11th jade medal. No, it's not enough, said Lin Feng looking determined. He didn't want the 11th jade medal, especially seeing how others could choose him as an opponent. Shui Sha and Yuemo wanted to kill him. Those two would obtain one of the first 10 jade medals, so they would be able to challenge him. They would kill him outright. Therefore, Lin Feng needed a better medal than that. Now, he had to fight against the 9th person. The 8th person was at first speechless, but then replied, "I wish you good luck." Lin Feng slowly turned around and walked towards the 9th person. Defeating him or crossing that barrage wouldn't be easy. But he would be able to obtain the first jade medal if he did. He'd practically be guaranteed to finish amongst the best ones in the end then. Lin Feng needed to keep everything under control if he wanted to finish in the top 9 at the great competition of Shuiyu. The last one was of the 9th Xian Qi layer. How strong! That 9th person sensed Lin Feng approaching. He slowly opened his eyes and extremely sharp lights twinkled in his eyes. They penetrated into Lin Feng's heart. In Shuiyu, the 9th Xian Qi layer was already incredible. Such cultivators were considered as monstrously strong. Only past that was there the Tian Qi layer. "Go," said Lin Feng looking ferociously fierce. Lin Feng would have to fight against other cultivators of the 9th Xian Qi layer later during the competition. So he had to see how strong they really were first to find a way to defeat them.